Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We were supposed to be at First Horizon Park today, but the Nashville Sounds, I believe the game got postponed.
Yep.
Is that why we're not there? The game got...
That is correct,
sucks.
yeah.
I was so excited to go to the ballpark one last time this season, and it does not look like that will happen. But again, the Sounds, this is their final homestand, Ian, I believe, of the year.
That is also correct, yeah.
Their final homestand this week of the year. Go on out to the Sounds. We want to thank the Sounds. It was a great season. We had a lot of fun out there this year.
Yeah, they'll have a doubleheader on Saturday.
And I think the first time that we went out there this year was the day I got my puppy. And so it brings back those fond memories of when I got my puppy. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So let's start with what I think is something you're going to hear. You're not going to like it, but it is a reality that I believe this is what you're going to hear. Remember how we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the idea when Harold Landry came out and said guys can be themselves, and talked about basically threw Mike Vrabel and his staff under the bus about how guys can get themselves ready for the games. They can prepare differently. And this was about the 19th different person that kind of threw Vrabel under the bus. And it kind of reminded me of the presidency of Warren G. Harding, the president of the United States who died in office and was beloved, only to find out that he had his hand in many a scandal while he was the president, including the Teapot Dome issue. And all of a sudden, he's now remembered as a crooked and corrupt president. But when he died, everybody thought he was the man. And with Mike Vrabel, when he was here, all anybody did was talk about how great Mike Vrabel was. The players, the owner, the coaches, everybody else. Mike Vrabel's gone. Now everybody tells us how bad Mike Vrabel is. Well, that was when the record was 0-0. That was when they could tell themselves that the reason we were bad last year was because of Mike Vrabel. It's all Mike Vrabel's fault. It's not anybody else's. And then they lost. So inside the Titans, all we heard about was how bad Mike Vrabel was. I mean, I've even had people tell me behind the scenes that, oh, no, Jared, you'll see. It'll be a big difference without Vrabel. You'll see, Jared. Well, now, the other side of it. This is Mike Lombardi, former NFL general manager. And let's not kid ourselves. Lombardi comes from the Patriot Brotherhood, and we know so does Vrabel. But this was Mike Lombardi on his GM Shuffle podcast talking about the Titans' loss on Sunday to the Bears.
Who should get the game ball is Will Levis. Look, here's what I'll say about Will Levis. Okay, you just lost one of the best coaches in football, Mike Vrabel, because Rand Carthon was convinced Will Levis is going to be the guy. Okay, so Rand Carthon won the power struggle in your hometown there in Nashville. And they built everything this off. Brian Callahan got the job because of Will Levis. Every move they made this offseason is to make Will Levis better. And I'm telling you, I will be completely shocked. I'll give it more time. But Will Levis is a robot playing quarterback. Look, he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. He was horrendous in this game. Fumbled. The ball sprayed all over. He's got guys wide open. He can't get them the football. Look, that was the best thing going for Chicago was Will Levis.
He went there. He went there on the GM Shuffle, implying that Rand Carthon, I mean, he didn't imply that Rand Carthon won a power struggle. He said Rand Carthon won a power struggle. But the implication by Mike Lombardi was Mike Vrabel knew better about Will Levis. Rand Carthon convinced the owner, and congratulations, Tennessee. You've lost a great head coach, and you're stuck with the dipstick at quarterback. That's basically what he said. And Lord, I hope he's not right. But through 1 week, oh man, it's not looking good. And there's too much smoke. The more I've thought about it, there's too much smoke to think that Vrabel really wanted Mike Levis. I said Mike Levis, Will Levis. It reminds me of when they made the switch at quarterback from Tannehill to Levis, and Vrabel went up there at the press conference, and Vrabel was, I remember the coach's TV show with Mike Keith when he was talking about it, and Vrabel was like, I think I'm doing what's in the best interest, and the look on his face was, boy, I don't know if this is a good idea, and I think I might be better off with Ryan Tannehill. Then there was Charles Robinson's report after the draft, where he said the coaching staff wanted to draft a player that could help the team that year. They didn't want to draft Will Levis in the second round. Then, again, going through the smoke of the idea that this was a Rand decision and not a Mike decision when it comes to Levis, there was Rand's defensiveness the night they drafted Will Levis, telling the media that they needed to be positive over both the Levis and Tajay Spears picks. If you remember, as soon as Tajay Spears got drafted, Ian Rappaport went on TV and said, Tajay Spears Medical says he doesn't have an ACL. And so throw on top the fact that Levis was a controversial pick coming out and Spears became a controversial pick because of the question marks at knee. And remember that same defensiveness that we're talking about with Rand Carthon, Mike Vrabel shot down 8 minutes later that night with the, and again, this goes back to the fact that sometimes Mike Vrabel just can't not do these things. If the best night of your career is the night you get drafted, you probably didn't have a very good career. So yes, Mike Lombardi is slanted towards Mike Vrabel. There is no doubt there's a bias. Whether it's the Patriot Brotherhood or not, Mike Lombardi has always been pro-Vrabel and anti-Titans. And in the case of Vrabel and Rand Carthon, he's always been pro-Vrabel and anti-Rand Carthon. But let's not forget, before we poo-poo Mike Lombardi, although Floyd definitely had no problem poo-pooing Mike Lombardi when Lombardi would have an opinion. Again, this is coming back to Lombardi saying that there was a power struggle and Rand Carthon won it by convincing the owner that Levis was the guy. That's more of a report than it is an opinion. But before we poo-poo Mike Lombardi, he did get the Kevin Byard stuff before everybody else did. In fact, I remember when he said it on his podcast, yeah, that's a good player, and the Titans want him to take a pay cut, and he's not sure he's going to take it. And that's when I started reaching out to my sources because I figured there was no way the Titans were actually asking Kevin Byard to take a pay cut. So when I found out they were asking Kevin Byard to take a pay cut, I was like, oh, wow. So Lombardi got one right. And he is certainly pro-Vrabel. But he has never backed down, no matter what narrative has come out, no matter what the pushback has been, no matter what the reporting has been. I remember Joe and Diana wrote a story in The Athletic about the anatomy of a firing. What went on behind the scenes into Vrabel's firing, and it didn't sound like in there, other than Vrabel going to the owner and saying he thought he should be GM and Rand should be assistant GM. There wasn't anything in there that alluded to a power struggle. No matter what Rand said about, oh no, firing Mike Vrabel was one of the hardest days for my family. In spite of all that, Lombardi never backed down about there being issues in the front office between Vrabel and Carthon and how ultimately Carthon won. Remember, before Vrabel got fired, Lombardi was coming out saying Tennessee's got to get it figured out in the front office. Remember, I reported from what I heard before Vrabel got fired. I said, Vrabel wants somebody above him and Rand Carthon, and he wants jobs for Chad Brinker and Anthony Robinson more defined. And what did they end up doing? They ended up promoting Chad Brinker over Rand Carthon. So while everything was peachy and rosy, from the draft to OTAs to, hunting together is not the same as hunting at the same time and all of that. As soon as something bad happens, here comes the narrative that Mike Vrabel didn't want Will Levis, that Rand Carthon wanted Will Levis, that Rand Carthon won the power struggle and convinced the owner to go with Will Levis. And the more games like Sunday happen, if they continue, and I have no idea if they'll continue or not, The more that happens, the more you're going to hear this. Just like the more we heard throughout the offseason about how great it was that Vrabel was gone internally, the more you're going to hear from outside about how much of a mistake it was to fire Mike Vrabel. That is going to happen. And I think right now, again, with this Lombardi comment, it sounds like they are trying to stick Will Levis on Ran Carthon. And that could be a very slippery slope around here. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And again, let's not poo-poo Lombardi. I know a lot of people want to do that. But he never backed down that this was a power struggle that Vrabel lost. And now the way he feels is that we all are stuck with Will Levis and Ran Carthon. And just know that unless Will Levis turns it around, all of this stuff is only going to get louder and louder. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. So Robbie Stanley today asked Charles Robinson. So it's one thing, because I haven't looked at the text line, Ian, but I bet you there is some poo-pooing of Mike Lombardi on this.
Yeah, maybe one or two in the YouTube as well.
Already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know there's going to be some poo-poo when it comes to this. But Robbie asked Charles Robinson what he had heard this morning. What he said, we'll do it next. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Charles, back on the Levis front, I mean, Michael Lombardi was talking about this on his podcast of the Vrabel Levis dynamic and Carthon fully believing in Levis and maybe Vrabel having some hesitation with it and Carthon ultimately winning, I guess, a power struggle. Have you heard anything like that? What do you make of that idea of maybe a divide on Levis to begin with between those two?
I brought this up. I think I brought it up in the show. I think I brought it up with Joe. I had other NFL teams bring it up, guys who knew Will, who knew other coaches on that offensive staff when he was drafted. And I think it's fair to say it was a controversial pick in the organization, that there were some people who did not like him, that there were some people who did like him. I just go back to watching what they put out, the clip that they put out when he was drafted. And, you know, you have an owner who talks to him, and, you know, there's just an excitement there. You have a general manager who talks to him, there's an excitement there. And then I felt like as soon as Vrabel got on the phone, and I know we can say this is also Mike, but as soon as Mike got on the phone, it was like, you know, it felt like he was already harping on the coaching points that tilted into what was considered the negativity about Will.
That was Charles Robinson this morning. By the way, I love the question Robbie asked about, again, Mike Lombardi said there was a power struggle, that Mike Lombardi says there was a power struggle between Vrabel and Carthon, and that Vrabel lost and Carthon won, and that Vrabel didn't want Will Levis. Just listen to the disgust in Robbie's voice to even have to bring this up.
Charles, back on the Levis front, I mean, Michael Lombardi was talking about this on his podcast of the Vrabel Levis dynamic, and Carthon fully believing in Levis, and maybe Vrabel having some hesitation with it, and Carthon ultimately winning, I guess, a power struggle. Have you heard anything like that? What do you make of that idea?
Robbie, like with Robbie, you know, he's not, I would say he might be the least emotional person at the station as far as like when it comes to takes and things like that. Like even his Rob rants aren't really rants. It's just inconveniences in the life of Robbie Stanley. And yet right there, that little, I mean, I guess a power struggle. But Charles Robinson backs it up. Charles Robinson backs up Lombardi's claim regarding the divide on Levis from what he's heard around the league. And so, again, Mike Lombardi said it, and Lombardi was right about Kevin Byard. And when the Titans were saying there's nothing to see here between Vrabel and Carthon, Lombardi didn't stop. Lombardi was still saying, no, they got issues in the front office in Tennessee. And Charles says, hey, I've heard the same things around the league. Remember, it was Charles that I think was the first one that when that whole Ian Rappaport thing went down about Levis starting and Vrabel's like, I didn't say that. I think it was Charles who said on Robbie and Joe, no, there were some people in the coaching staff that were looking in the front office saying, who's talking to Ian Rappaport? So if that's the case, and again, this is an if, and maybe Levis turns it around. I don't know. But if that's the case, and Rand Carthon did want Will Levis, and Mike Vrabel objected to Will Levis, that's going to be a problem if Will Levis doesn't pan out. If Will Levis does pan out, then we'll know that Rand Carthon was the one who picked Will Levis because they'll tell us that. If Will Levis becomes Dan Marino, which I think is now an almost impossibility, but if he does, if he becomes a great player, they'll tell you, oh, yeah, we knew when we went down to Kentucky, we met with him and he really was this and he was that. We went to the pro day and we knew, even though we picked a crappy guard ahead of him, we knew. So you'll know that it was Rand's guy if it works out. If it doesn't, we've already seen this week Brian Callahan try to kind of distance himself a little bit on Monday before going back all in on Wednesday. So it's probably true. If Lombardi says it happened, and if Charles says it happened, it's probably true. And this is why I worry about the entire dynamic of this brand new power structure the Titans introduced this year, a year after having introduced another previous power structure. Because I think we all now know how this operates, which means that let's say Levis is what we saw Sunday. Not as bad as we saw Sunday, but let's just say Levis is bad. Let's just say Levis is what he's been so far through 10 games in his career. He's 3-7 as a starter. He's a 50-something% passer. He's a 200 yards a game guy. He's a 1 touchdown, 1 pick a game guy for the most part outside of the Atlanta game last year. Let's say that's what he is. Well, then Amy, as we all know, she's going to blame whoever made the bad decision. And in this case, the voices are only going to get louder, by the way, because the national media is very pro-Vrabel. But it's just going to get louder about Rand making the decision on Will Levis. And here's what I don't like. Again, I don't know for a fact that it was Rand that pushed Will Levis. I have no idea. But when Lombardi says it's true and Charles says it's true, chances are it's probably true. But this goes back to the cycle that the Titans have entered over the last 3 years that I think is very dangerous for the operation. And that is the game of musical blame. At some point, the Titans have got to get everything set onto the same page, where the GM hires the coach, and the GM and the coach pick the quarterback and plan the development for the quarterback and set the offense for the quarterback when he's a rookie. And I want them to work together. And I don't want to hear, well, you know, it was this guy who liked the player, but this coach who screwed him up, and this guy who did that, and that guy who did this, and that, this, that, the other. And then if they all stink as a group, goodbye. I mean, I know it's a painful existence right now to be a New York Giants fan. I get it. But the light at the end of the tunnel for the Giants is at the end of the year, they're going to be able to fire the GM, the coach, and the quarterback all at the same time. And then they can hire a GM, and then the GM can hire a coach, and then they can go get a quarterback. And if, let's say, they hire the offensive coordinator in Minnesota, and he works with Sam Darnold this year, and he thinks Sam Darnold is the man, then go ahead. If they're picking second in the draft, and they're convinced Carson Beck is their guy, then they can draft him and they can implement it however they want. But they're all in it together. Look at Houston. Houston has a general manager, Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio did not pick, no matter what they say, he did not pick David Culley. They hired David Culley because Deshaun Watson was very upset about the fact that after having Bill O'Brien, they went with a Patriot guy in Caserio, and he didn't want to play there anymore. And they tried to hire a coach who had no ties to the Patriots that could convince Deshaun Watson to stay. It didn't work. Then they fired David Culley, and nobody wanted the job, and so they hired Lovie Smith. Then they fired him. Then they got D'Amico. Then they got their quarterback. And now everybody there is aligned on the same page. But that doesn't happen here, because what's happened here over the last 3 years is Amy Adams Strunk has just singled out one person and said, it's your fault. First, it was Robinson. And this is a Mike Vrabel issue, by the way, because at first it was Robinson. Remember, Vrabel acted like a crybaby when they traded away A.J. Brown, which led everybody to have the belief that Vrabel didn't want that to happen, so don't blame him. So everybody put it on Robinson. No matter how involved Mike Vrabel was on Isaiah Wilson, which I hear it was a lot, Robinson got the blame for that. Robinson got the blame for Farley, the blame for Radence, not the fact that Vrabel's offensive line coach was terrible. And maybe Robinson should have gotten all the blame for that. I don't know. But he solely got the blame. And they lifted up Vrabel as the solution to the problem. Then they bring somebody else in. Well, now you can't be mad at the new guy. So the new guy wants the quarterback. You draft the quarterback. Vrabel's hesitant to play the quarterback, but then he does play the quarterback. And then clearly there's a disconnect somewhere around here. So they blame the guy that was there first. And then they prop Rand up as the solution. And now we're starting to hear that, no, it was Rand who wanted the quarterback, and the quarterback might not be very good. And so the more they lose and the more that this happens, the more you're going to hear things like you just heard from Mike Lombardi. That is, no. The problem is the general manager who wanted the quarterback. And the more they lose, if Levis plays the way he played, and again, there's no guarantee Levis will play that way. There's hope that Levis will play better. I don't think there's anything else other than hope to have that he'll play better, but there's hope. But if Levis continues to stink, I mean, it's just natural that Brian Callahan's going to distance himself from a guy he didn't draft. And that, again, continues the cycle of, well, it's not this guy's fault, but it's that guy's fault. So then Amy's going to haul off and fire Rand because, again, that's what she does. When we play musical blame, she's going to haul off and fire Rand, and then they're going to hire a new GM who didn't hire Brian Callahan. And they're going to want the new GM to work with Brian Callahan, and they'll redo the management structure. But at some point, that has to stop. At some point, the Titans have to look in the mirror and say, no, we're going to do this with the quarterback, the coach, the GM, and then when push finally comes to shove, we're going to change everything all at one time. And I don't think it'd be very good to change everything right now. And I don't think it'd be very good to change everything at the end of the year. But just know every time that you change the coach but keep the quarterback, or change the GM but keep the coach, or every time you do this, there's always going to be a, well, John Robinson didn't draft Marcus Mariota. It's always going to be that way. And that's got to stop. And again, what also has to stop is the this guy liked that guy, this guy didn't like this guy didn't. That's got to stop too. And I'm afraid the only way that stops is by winning some football games. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in on this, so we will do that. Again, our phone number is 615-737-1025. We are supposed to be at First Horizon Park today for the Sounds. Unfortunately, we are not because of the rain today, but that's okay. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Last year, I couldn't imagine doing it without Vrabes, because he's a vet, one of the smartest, football minds I've ever been around. And just having him there to bounce things off of, because I don't give a damn what position you're in. you've never done it till you've done it. You know, you can read every book there is. You know, I can go and read every book there is on how to play basketball, but I've never played basketball till I've been out there on that court. And so that's how it was for me in the GM spot. But I had a guy in Mike that I can go and say, hey man, like, how does this part work? You know, or I'm not sure, you know, about this.
That was Rand Carthon on Bussin' with the Boys, talking about his long-lost brother, Mike Vrabel, who, according to Michael Lombardi, Rand knocked out in a power struggle, convincing the owner to go with Will Levis. Ian, by the way, do you buy what Lombardi is selling?
I'm not sure that Vrabel was out on the Levis pick.
Let's play the cut again. This is
That's
Mike
a good
Lombardi.
question. I'm not sure about that.
This is Mike Lombardi from the GM Shuffle podcast. Here's what he said about the current situation in Tennessee.
Who should get the game ball is Will Levis. Look, here's what I'll say about Will Levis. Okay, you just lost one of the best coaches in football, Mike Vrabel, because Rand Carthon was convinced Will Levis is going to be the guy. Okay, so Rand Carthon won the power struggle in your hometown there of Nashville. And they built everything this off. Brian Callahan got the job because of Will Levis. Every move they made this offseason is to make Will Levis better. And I'm telling you, I will be completely shocked. I'll give it more time. But Will Levis is a robot playing quarterback. Look, he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. He was horrendous in this game. Fumbled. The ball sprayed all over. He's got guys wide open. He can't get them the football. Look, that was the best thing going for Chicago was Will Levis.
Do you buy it?
I mean,
he's been pretty consistent.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm 100% on board.
Here's what I would not be surprised to find out if it were true that after the 6 games or after the 9 games last year, Vrabel wasn't sold on Levis. That wouldn't surprise me. Now, I don't think Vrabel knows how to develop a quarterback, but it would not surprise me if Vrabel didn't love Will Levis. Because I think deep down inside, I think Vrabel rather have Tannehill be his quarterback than Will Levis. But then again, defensive coaches always like veteran quarterbacks because they don't have to babysit them and they don't know how to babysit young quarterbacks. So that could be part of it. But it would not surprise me if Amy thought Levis was the guy and Rand thought Levis was the guy and Vrabel was like, and then they said, well, let's go get an offensive coach in here that can put together a coaching staff and not give us Todd Downing that we can build around this young quarterback. That would not surprise me. 615-737-1025. The text line is flooded. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And again, it's very half and half. First texter says, I remember when Mike Vrabel and the team took us to the AFC Championship game. Well, that was a while ago. Damian says, what about all the talk last year that we would have had C.J. Stroud if it weren't for loose lips talking about Mike Vrabel? I think that's a fair point. Have you noticed how little information Diana Rossini has been reporting about the Titans over the last 8 months? I hear that the current administration is more of a Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport group. Weston Clarksville says, I guess Vrabel's doing a great job in Cleveland. Let me tell you something now. Mike Vrabel has nothing to do with the fact that Deshaun Watson sucks, and you know it. That has absolutely nothing to do with Vrabel. And it shouldn't have anything to do with Vrabel. But man, the Deshaun Watson situation in Cleveland is a freaking mess. Jason in Dover says, if all of this is true, I'm done with the organization as a 25-year fan. I'm going to pick another team. Well, you know what I've said for years, Ian? I've said, if I have kids, I'm going to tell them don't root for the Titans.
That's right. You have said that.
Don't do what dad and grandpa, I don't even know what we're going to call him my dad. Don't do what dad and grandpa have done because it has been quite a tenuous 30 years. But we'll actually see around Christmas time, if push comes to shove, if I will actually tell my son.
Time to put it on the mahogany.
And tell my son to root for the Steelers or the Packers or the Ravens or one of these teams that wins more. and just say your life will be much better because of it. My dad made me a Vanderbilt fan. Well, he didn't make me a Vanderbilt fan, but we grew up Vanderbilt fans. I know pain. I will not do that to my kid. Although I am rooting for Vandy this week, and they should start 3-0. One texter says, why did Mike Vrabel get a job among the 8 openings if he's so great? He inherited a playoff team and ran it into the ground. I mean, you guys can do that all you want about how Vrabel didn't get a job. I mean, I think you'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. He was never going to get the Charger job. That was going to go to Harbaugh. The Falcons ended up hiring Raheem Morris, and they had already had Raheem Morris before. So take that with a grain of salt. Carolina was always going to hire an offensive coach for Bryce Young. I don't know if Vrabel was in the mix in Seattle or not. Vrabel obviously wasn't going to get the Tennessee job. And I'm trying to think, what are the others? Washington, Adam Peters comes from San Francisco, ran Carthon. If he and Vrabel had a power struggle, he's not going to hire Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel's getting a job this year. Like Mike Vrabel this time next year will be a head coach. And if Vrabel wins, which I think he will, because I think he's got that kind of personality where he wins and then drives everybody crazy. If the Titans aren't winning, you guys are going to say, why did we fire Vrabel? And if the Titans are winning, you're going to say, good riddance to Mike Vrabel. And that's just how this all works. When Vrabel was the coach here, you loved him. When Vrabel wasn't the coach, you hated him. You loved him when he was still the coach. PK ran a poll after they fired him, before they hired Brian Callahan, saying was it the right decision? And it was like 60% said no. Cody says, it seems like you are trying to set up the firing of Rand Carthon. I'm not trying to set up the firing of anybody. I'm telling you what Mike Lombardi said. And I am telling you that this owner here plays musical blame. Remember when the problem was John Robinson? They fired him, and she told Teresa Walker when they asked about a power struggle, and she was like, Mike Vrabel would never do that. If you think that, you don't know Mike Vrabel. I think I know Mike Vrabel pretty well. In fact, I think I know Mike Vrabel so much that Mike Vrabel hates that. And I'm telling you right now, power struggle, there's only so much room in town for the sheriff. And Vrabel strikes me as that kind of hombre. Ryan is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, don't forget Vrabel put Will Levis in over Tannehill, who we all know he actually did like. Tannehill was supposedly supposed to be trash when he was in Miami. He come here, got a new start, won us a lot of games. And Jordan Love, for 3 years, we heard he was not the guy. 2/3 of the season last year, he's not the guy until he was. This is game number 10. We're going to game number 11. I think you'll be wrong by Will Levis by the end of the season.
I mean, I'm going to stand. Thank you for your call, Ryan. I'm going to stay with Mike Lombardi when he said in that cut, he was like, I will be shocked if Will Levis becomes the guy. That's where I sit now. I mean, I saw peewee level football mistakes out of a second-year, 25-year-old quarterback. I have a problem with that. You guys chalk it up to one bad game. I don't do that. I also don't do this whole thing where, well, it's only 10 games, Jared. I don't do that. It's year 2. There's a difference between year 1 and year 2. Year 1, you're trying to figure out what the league is all about. The speed of the game, how to prepare, the fact that it's a job, all of that. Year 2, you know what the expectations are going in. You're a grown-up now. You're not a freshman anymore. So I don't do this whole, it's just game 11. And again, we pulled up Jordan Love's first game last year. He had a passer rating of like 127. Levis had a passer rating of 57. Unbelievable. Chris says, come on, Jared. Most people thought Levis was good value in the second round. Most teams, including the Titans, are always searching for the franchise quarterbacks. Very few, if ever, find them. This is what makes or breaks every team, including the GM and coaches' jobs. And you know what's funny is when they drafted Levis, and I was not anti-Levis when they picked him. And my problem with Levis right now, Levis has talent. Like, he's got talent. My problem with Levis right now is I just don't think he's capable. As Floyd said, all these metrics and everything else, this draft process, the reason people missed on Tom Brady is they don't measure your heart or your head. And I'm not worried about Levis's heart, but I am worried about Levis's head. That is where I sit as far as, but when they drafted him, I said, okay, the coach and the GM are now tied to Will Levis. And the coach has already been fired. Andrew is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Jared, thanks for taking the call. So I was at the Falcons game last year, and we all saw what Levis did, and we were all excited. And then I noticed in the post game that someone asked Vrabel about Levis and said, "Not a bad start, right?" Almost sarcastically, as if to
Credited
say, "Yeah,
Tim
that was a great
Kelly.
start."
Remember, he credited Tim Kelly?
Oh, right, yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
Diana gave all the credit to Tim Kelly? Funny how
Definitely.
that went.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, my question is this. So real quick, my opinion was at the time I thought Vrabel was being kind of smug and maybe a little bit stubborn. But your point recently, a few minutes ago, about how maybe he didn't want Levis in the first place does make me wonder, a whole year later almost now, do you think that his initial reaction was because he was just being stubborn, or more so that maybe he didn't want Levis in the first place, or a mixture of both? I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Thank you.
I think all these coaches suffer from something that I call, thank you, Andrew. I think all these coaches, for the most part, suffer from something that I call MGS. You know what MGS stands for? My guy syndrome. Where these coaches are like, my guy, my coach, my offense, my coordinator, my quarterback, that's my guy. I do think that Vrabel absolutely suffers from that. That's why Tim Kelly was the offensive coordinator. I mean, I could have told you at the beginning, yeah, he's going to hire Tim Kelly because it was just so obvious because he's his guy. Coach with him at the Texans, coach with him at Ohio State. Not that Kelly coached with him at Ohio State, but I'm saying those are where he gets guys. And it's like, my guy from Ohio State, trust me. My guy from Boston College, trust me. My guy syndrome. Maybe Lev's wasn't his guy. All right, let's put a smiley face on all of this. Chris Sanders will join us next. Chris's reaction to the meltdown week 1, plus we'll turn our attention to week 2, and we'll do that next. Hey, tune into 102.5, 106.3 The Game this Saturday for Vandy football. The Commodores will take on Georgia State on the road. Pre-game begins at 4:30, kickoff at 6. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. And tune into 102.5, 106.3 The Game this Saturday at 11 a.m. for our college football game of the week. Alabama and Wisconsin, presented by Twin Peaks. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. Nashville's best deal this week is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Check them out at 371 Monroe Street in Germantown, or order takeout online at 312pizzacompany.com. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. So I've been very hard on the Titans, been very disappointed in the Titans, and I've been very hard on the Titans over the last couple of days, specifically the quarterback, because, well, I think he cost them the game. So we need to bring in some sunshine. Chris Sanders joins us on the program, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Chris?
Yes, sir.
Tell me something good about the quarterback, because I am very disappointed in Sunday's performance and do not have much faith going into Sunday against the Jets.
Because I went back and looked at the film. I want to see why he threw the interception and why, the decision maker was kind of off a little bit. And as you look at it, I think it's kind of correctable. And me and Derek talked about this on the show, when we did our pre-show game last Sunday, is don't try to play the hero ball. Don't try to make something happen when nothing's there. If you just look at the whole situation, when he threw the pick six, if he just gets sacked and holds onto the ball, you can live another play and then also try to make a play on the next play. So, it's just, I don't like to say bonehead play because I'll never disrespect another player. I just think that it was a really, really bad decision on throwing that pick six.
Chris, we had a caller call in on Monday and say everybody labels the way Will Levis plays and calls it panic ball. And the caller said, hero ball. The caller said, I think it's more panic ball. Right. And I agree with that. I think that when the going gets tough with Will Levis, for some reason, I think his brain clicks off, and that's why he doesn't slide. And yesterday he was asked about sliding and was like, well, I wanted to make sure I got the first down. But one of the ones where he didn't slide and he launched himself, he had the first down by a couple of yards. His game awareness was just awful on Sunday. And I don't really know if that's correctable.
Yeah, I just think that, just kind of looking at the whole situation, when a person gets in trouble, I'm just going to put it in a away from football sense, when a person gets in a situation to where it's dangerous, they go back to what's familiar. And if you kind of look at what Will Levis, when he gets in trouble and he feels a little pressure, he goes back to what's familiar. If you look at earlier in the game or earlier in the camp, he was going through his reads. He was going through his first and second and third read. Then now when he feels a little pressure and the left side of the offense is giving up, some dog blitzes and everything, he goes back to what's familiar. What's familiar? Staring down receivers, trying to make something happen.
Was he staring down receivers on Sunday? I didn't feel like he was staring down receivers. I just think he was playing stupid.
Yeah, but you have to make the interception. You got to be throwing at the receiver. So
he wasn't throwing at a receiver on that pick six.
Yeah, it was. But Tyler Boyd was right there.
He said he was trying to throw the ball away.
Yeah. No.
That's what he said.
No. When you're throwing the ball away, you're trying to throw it out of bounds.
Chris, I understand this. You understand this.
No.
This is my point. His brain clicks off. That's the problem.
But it's like this. Okay, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. If Les Steckel taught me a release that I did and in practice, and it feels pretty good and it feels comfortable, all of a sudden I get jammed at the line of scrimmage, I immediately go back to, I got to go back to doing how I used to doing it. And when watching Will Levis, when he gets in trouble or he feels a little bit of pressure, just like what I said, he goes back to what he did at Kentucky, trying to make something happen that's not there. And that's what we saw on the pick six. There's nothing there.
So you don't believe that he was trying to throw the ball away, even though that's what he said?
No, you can't, because Tyler Boyd was right there. If you're trying to throw it away,
the only guy that I thought was right there was the Chicago guy.
No, he was there. But if you watch the film, Tyler Boyd is right there on right before you get out of bounds. So he was trying to make something happen. And listen, I don't want to ever disrespect another man. I'm never going to disrespect a man. But that decision making right there was not good, because it didn't just cost you a play, it cost you the game. So this is a good thing that he can learn from, to where he can understand, to be like, what? Next time I'm just going to take a sack to live it next down. So that's the reason why I say this stuff is correctable, because it actually is correctable.
So what do you make about the correctable stuff when the sliding, for instance, is something that is correctable and he just doesn't do it?
Yeah, but when you get hit in the mouth, then you're gonna start sliding.
Not him.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to. I mean, look, listen, we got to understand that the defenses are they're gonna find you out. Everybody knows about Michael Vick, who's a great scrambler. Everybody knows about him. They found him out, and he's probably one of the fastest quarterbacks of all time. So now you got Will Levis that feels like, okay, I can jump over people, I can run through people's lips. That's great and everything. You're going to look up at the 5th or 6th week, and you're going to be sitting on the sideline because you can't play. And listen, when I say hero ball, that's not a disrespect. It's just saying you're trying to make something happen, that you usually don't do. That's what I mean by hero ball. Just understand what's at hand. Understand it. If I take a sack or slide, I live another play. That's what I mean by just playing smart.
Chris Sanders with us on the program. How worried are we about Scoronski?
A little bit. I'm concerned a little bit because this is just my opinion. He still kind of looks like a rookie a little bit because the technique hasn't changed.
He looks like a bum. I mean, he looks terrible.
He's not a bum, man. He's not a bum. It's just some
terrible.
things you said.
He's the
Hold
11th pick and he can't pass block.
Hold up. Can I call you your nickname again, Pancake? Because you flip every single week. You
Whoa.
Good.
No, I did
Oh
not.
my
Ian, back me up on this.
God.
I have never flip-flopped on
Yes,
Peter
you
Scoronski.
did. You said Scoronski's going to be great.
Ian?
Good.
Did I ever
Ian,
say that?
Tell me, Ian.
I do not recall.
No, don't do that. You know I
Ian.
didn't do that.
Oh,
You
my
know I did not do that.
Oh, my God.
Telling me that I said Scoronski. That was everybody else. And I watched him in those Seahawk practices, and I'm like, I don't think he's very good. And they're like, oh, you don't understand, Jared. The coach said he was good, so he's good. And I'm like, again.
He's got some technique issues that he needs to work on, but you got Coach Callahan that's this to do. He's going to get him right.
You can get him right for this game.
I'm trying to give you some sunshine. I'm trying to give it to you, but man, you keep kicking me in the teeth.
But you keep spewing off the same, and I love you, but you keep spewing off the same things these Titan fans are spewing, where it's like, I watched the game happen, and I watch it, and then everybody tries to tell me what common sense is, what my eyeballs saw is not true. It's like you're telling me the Levis is young, and this is correctable. This is year 2, Chris Sanders. He's 25 years old, but he's not making corrections. So why would I just assume that all of a sudden now the light bulb's going to pop on?
Jared, it's year 2, not year 5. Year 2. Did you hear what I'll listen to Tom Brady.
If I have to watch 4 more years of this crap, oh my God.
No, but listen, Tom Brady said this. He said, guys coming into the NFL, they need to sit and learn. Now, if you look at the situation with Will Levis, he came in, but then he had to play later on in the season. Sometimes it's good to sit for 1, 2, 3 years to understand the defense, to understand what you're doing, to understand what's at hand. So I think the fault right now is we're asking him to play now when maybe he's not ready.
He's 25.
Oh, my God. I don't care if he's 37. I'm talking about game experience. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, it took Mac about 3 years to really get to where he needed to be. And what we're doing to these quarterbacks, how we're making these guys having a disservice is because we're expecting these guys to come out of college to play, and they're not ready. Perfect example. Look at Caleb Williams. Wanstead came out and said, oh, his stuff is great. He's got the best arm. He knows what he's doing. He had 84 yards of passing. That's the point that I'm making. We need to sit these cats down and really not just tell them you need to do this and not just teach them how to do it, but wait and then teach them. And then when they get in game, they're going to be ready. Will Levis might not be ready, but even the stuff that I saw is still correctable.
I mean, Steve McNair was 25 years old in 1998.
Lord, oh my God.
At that point, he was a 2-year starter. He'd been in the league for 4 years when he was 25. Levis is 25 years old. He played at Penn State. He played at Kentucky. I mean, if you wanted to say last year he wasn't ready, I'm fine with that. I said when they drafted him, go say Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback and be done with it. And the Titans wouldn't do it. And so that's their business, not mine. But this is year 2. Like Anthony Richardson is 22 years old and has started something like 16 games outside of high school. And I think even for him, it's time to be ready. Like it's time to prove that you were worth the 4th pick. That's where I sit with Levis. And now you're telling me that maybe Levis should be on the bench.
Listen to me. I'm telling you, just give him a little time. I know the fans are like, oh, we get him out of it, but who you going to get?
The fans are not saying that. And I'm not saying get him out of there either.
I'm just saying if he goes out there and squanders another game, you don't think those birds are going to be coming out? 1,000%. Well, who you got? Rudolph? You can't get Tannehill because he might be signing with the Packers. So what do you do? He's just got to get ready to play each and every week. Nick Holtz has to get him ready. Brian Callahan has to get him ready and make sure he doesn't make those mistakes. And I think as for me, listen, I'm going to be a coach right now. As a position coach, what he needs to do, sit him down and say, okay, son, this is what I need you to do. You can't make those mistakes. Your team is dependent on you. Have the game at hand. Understand what is going on in the concept, in the compounds of what the Tennessee Titans are doing, not what Will Levis is doing. And when he gets to that point and focuses on what the team wants instead of what he wants, then now he's going to be successful.
Are you optimistic, Chris Sanders, about the game on Sunday?
I think they're gonna win.
Of course.
And the reason and the reason why I'm gonna win is because Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers looks good right now. I mean, he looks.
But you think Will Levis looks good?
But you know why I'm saying it is I think our defense is going to shut him down and get some interceptions or some turnovers. Our defense is flat out balling. 148 yards against the Chicago Bears. Come on, man, that defense is balling. But looking at the situation, look at Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do nothing in OTAs. He didn't really do nothing in camp. He didn't do nothing in preseason. Now he looks bad right now. So I think the Tennessee Titans are going to beat the brakes off the New York Jets.
Wow. Chris Sanders, my
Did
guy.
you like the sunshine?
Oh, that was some sunshine right there, boy. I tell you. Why are you going to win? Because they have Aaron Rodgers. That's why we're going to win. Like,
that ain't what I.
Oh, goodness. 615-737-1025. Chris, we will see you Sunday.
Love you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yep, Chris Sanders joining us on the program. I got to react to what Chris said. I do. And there was one particular thing that was said today that, again, leaves me sitting there saying, wait a minute, what?
Your love of Scoronski?
What? We'll get to that next. Stillman, yeah, what was that? And I'm mad at you. You know good well I wasn't saying that during training camp.
I do not recall.
Oh, bullcrap. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. I love my brother Chris Sanders. I do. But at the same time, his defense of Will Levis was, A, all the mistakes were correctable, and B, maybe Will Levis at 25 years old, his second year in the NFL, should be sitting on the bench and learning. And that ain't good. That is not good. And then Chris said he thinks the Titans are going to win on Sunday because Aaron Rodgers, which again is also a hot take. I love that man, but it's a hot take. So I want to go back to the main thing Chris said, though, which is that, you know what, I'm okay, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm okay with Will Levis's mistakes on Sunday because they're correctable. And that is true. They are correctable. But why are we going to assume that he's going to make the corrections? I have talked about one play in Will Levis's rookie season the entire spring. And it was a play against the Texans at home when the JV Texans, when they wore the Oilers jerseys, against the JV Texans. It was an interception he threw on a ball into double coverage where Burks and Hopkins were together, and Hopkins stayed and Burks went down the field, and both Texan defenders stayed with Hopkins. And he forced the ball into Hopkins instead of looking for Traylon Burks. Now, again, as we saw on Sunday, there's no guarantee that Traylon Burks would have caught the ball if they had thrown the ball down the field. But again, bear with me. He was wide open. That's where it should have gone. And I kept saying, what will determine whether or not Will Levis makes it is if this time next year, Will Levis, instead of speeding up and just putting the ball where DeAndre is, knows he's got a couple of extra seconds, sees what's going on, and puts the ball down the field, then it will show that the game has slowed down for him. It'll show that he's processing quicker. It'll show that he's becoming a grown-up quarterback. And there is absolutely nothing about Sunday's game that gives me any hope that Will Levis is going to be able to change. This was an entire offseason. He now knows what it's like to play in the NFL. He's now been hurt twice in the NFL. There's supposed to be a big jump to year two. The old man used to say the biggest jump in a player's career is always between year one and year two. And Will Levis went out there on Sunday. And again, Chris is right. These are all correctable mistakes. But he's already proven to us that he doesn't make corrections. He won't slide. It doesn't matter which coach tells him to slide. He won't do it. It doesn't matter how many times he gets hurt. He won't do it. It doesn't matter how serious the moment is, whether it's a preseason game against San Francisco, he won't do it. I heard today Robbie and Joe talking, and Joe was like, I don't think Levis did a bunch of stupid stuff last season. I'm like, I do. I remember when he threw a pick six to a defensive tackle against Miami, and as the tackle was in the end zone, lowered his shoulder and ran into the guy because he was frustrated, which, by the way, is not only dangerous, it's stupid. I remember that. Again, I remember the ball into double coverage. I remember the throws at the end of the game, the YOLO balls against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I remember when Tim Kelly took the ball out of his hands against Tampa Bay because he couldn't trust him to throw the ball down the field, so he started throwing bubble screens to Kyle Phillips. But again, to me, that was all rookie stuff. So I knew that. I knew that, hey, he's a rookie. That's, you learn from it. You go into year two, and on you go. But it's year two, and he's not making corrections. So Chris is saying, well, he'll make the corrections, just assuming he's going to make corrections. Based off of what? The guy didn't make a single correction from year one to year two. But you think he's going to make a correction from week one to week two? I don't get it. And again, I'm starting to really doubt what I'm hearing from the Titan coaching staff. Because we talked about this on Monday, going back to the death pick. the interception against Chicago. And what Will Levis saw or didn't see, again, I know what I saw. When Will Levis was in the shotgun on 3rd and 6, I saw the Jets bring in the blitz, and I thought immediately, ball's got to come out. Like, it's got to come out quick. It's got to be hot. Adam Amin, the play-by-play guy for Fox, said, they're coming. Here it is. Ball's got to come out. Levis stood in the pocket. The blitz came. Then he tried to roll out a little bit. Then he tried to shuffle pass it, out to the sideline. He says he was trying to throw it away. Chris doesn't believe him.
I mean, Boyd was there. The defender, I guess, was following Boyd, who picked it. But I don't know.
He says he was trying to throw it away. Callahan says he was trying to throw it away. But again, this matches with the theme that what they're all saying doesn't seem to add up. Callahan said yesterday, Levis needs to work on his footwork. Levis said yesterday his footwork was good. Somebody help me out here. Nick Holtz today was asked about that play. And Nick Holtz said, no, Levis saw the play perfectly. He read it correctly. He quarterbacked it right. Here's what Nick Holtz said.
Last play, he knew he was hot. You know what I mean? He knew he was hot. They brought a great blitz from the field. He knew all those things. So he saw it well. So I didn't see panicky. And, it's just a physical error compounded by a little bit of a mental error of not throwing it away. So I do think that was part of it. And then I think you go back to watching some of the game as the game went on in times of stress, all positions on our team went back to a little bit of some old habits.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? You kind of saw, and that's across the board, whether it was some of the receivers in their routes, some of the linemen in their pass sets, quarterback drifting into pressure a little bit, kind of, getting his feet off kilter. So I thought it was kind of group wide a little bit at the end. A lot of problems compounded each other, not just Will.
Oh, by the way, add Nick Holtz to the people that say the footwork wasn't very good, even though Levis said yesterday the footwork was good. But again, he's saying he was hot. He's saying, hey, he was hot. He knew he was hot. He read it well. It was just a physical error that led to that play? I cannot believe that. That's not true. In fact, Levis, after the game, when he said when he was asked about, again, Nick Holtz says he read the play correctly. He knew he was hot, which my response to that would be, if he knew he was hot, then why didn't he throw the ball hot, which I don't understand. But this is what Levis said after the game. You tell me if Levis read this correctly.
Just see on the pick six and what do you think after you let it go?
Yeah, just a bonehead play. Just I think recency bias from getting away with it the last time I did in the game. Just trying to throw it in the dirt. Then when you're getting taken down, you don't know what's going to happen to the ball as it comes out. I was really just trying to dirt it, and in that situation, you try to handle it with a zero check or something the first time, bringing zero all game, and then or just take the sack. It might be one of those times just to take the sack. So one of the things of a lot of things that I can learn from this game.
So the coach said he knew he was hot, and he went hot, and he said should have gone zero check, but it's the first time that they went zero, which is when they blitz everybody. It's the first time they went zero all game. So which one is it? Did he see it right or did he not see it right? He says he didn't see it right. The coach says he saw it right. I don't understand. I don't understand. Chris Sanders is like, oh no, I'm okay with this because all these mistakes are correctable. Do you think it's correctable when the coach says, hey, don't do anything stupid, and he goes out and he does something stupid? It's like, well, next time we tell him don't do anything stupid, I guarantee he won't do anything stupid. Am I the only person living in reality on this? 615-737-1025. We're to your phones on it next. 615-737-1025. And I'm not trying to crush Levis. But it's like I'm the only person out here that hears Levis say his footwork was good and then hear his coaches say it wasn't good. Well, that's a red flag. That's a problem. I'm the only one that hears the coach say he read it really well. And he said, I should have gone zero blitz there, or should have gone zero check there, but they hadn't gone zero blitz all game. So you didn't read it right. I mean, on Monday, the coach says that he was shocked at how stupid Levis played and begged him not to make a mistake. And so he goes out and makes the mistake. And then on Wednesday, the coach says, I thought his demeanor and his understanding of the game was great. By the way, Robbie Stanley texted me with the Nick Holtz quote. Quote, it was just a physical and mental error. That's good. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
Footwork, Will, I know you've worked on that a lot in the offseason. Did you feel good about it in the opener, or did you feel like there's some times where you kind of went backwards a little bit? What were your thoughts?
I felt really good. I think in the beginning, I think maybe that first third down, I got a little bit, wasn't like in the timing, or at least kind of like how my base was feeling at that point. And I can remember one other time where I moved off my base, sliding left in the pocket where I didn't need to. But other than that, I felt clean. I felt good in my base. I felt like I was delivering clean, accurate balls.
I felt like I was delivering Clean, accurate balls. Ian, you watch the game Sunday. Did you feel like he was delivering clean, accurate balls?
Not the whole time, no.
Coach says his footwork was off. Offensive coordinator says his footwork's off. He says his footwork's good. So when Chris Sanders says, oh, no, I feel fine because this is all correctable, it doesn't seem like he knows what the problem is. By the way, we even talked about this yesterday off the air. The touchdown pass to Chig.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 50-50 ball that Chig made a grab. That ball could have easily been intercepted.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a concern.
It was underthrown. Just a tad.
So, again, whatever standard you guys want to go by. But this whole, like, making up things that didn't happen, I'm not there with you guys. When the coach says, Levis read the death pick perfectly, I'm like, I don't think he did. When Levis says he was accurate on Sunday, I'm like, I don't think you were. And I feel like I'm the only person that's looking at all of this saying, wait a minute. No. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. TD to join us at the top of next hour. Dre has been waiting patiently and is up next on Will Levis. Dre, go ahead.
Jared. Man, you know what? You remind me of my mother, my wife, and my daughters. All you do is nag.
Seems very sexist, but go ahead.
Nag.
Yeah.
All you do is nag. I mean, it's over and done, man. It was week 1, guy. Hello?
Does it not count?
Huh? Yeah, well, of course it counts. And you don't think it's a bitter taste, man? Let's move on. Why you going to keep beating this right here? What are we going to do against these Jets, man?
You're going to do the same thing because nobody realizes what the problem is, Dre.
I mean, man, check this out, Jared. Real talk. He's a young player, man. You act like this dude is a veteran. He's a young player. He's trying to break all kinds of habits. He's trying to break all kinds of things. If he see, this is why you and Mike Vrabel, y'all couldn't get along because y'all just alike.
No,
you're just alike. You just
here's why Mike Vrabel and I couldn't get along, because when Vrabel started trying to pass off bull crap, I didn't buy that either. That's why.
Hey, Jared. Hey, check this out. But I'm gonna be real with you. The last time we talked, man, I really liked your response. I hated it, but it was true. I do like your coverage, man. You don't give them no slack. In this market here, you don't give these guys no slack. You're not going along to get along. You're willing to ask the hard questions. You're willing to bring up all the dirt. But damn, dude, I'm trying to get over that loss.
Dre,
let's go. Let's move to something else. I want to listen to you, but it's like, damn, you keep bringing up all my indeficiencies.
You mean insecurities?
All that. Insecurities, all that.
Dre, thank you for your call. Let me say this. I understand the idea of that happened on Sunday. Let's move on to the Jets. I totally understand. But at the same time, when you sit there and we're discussing what went wrong against the Bears, and the coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback all have 3 different stories, that's a problem. Because if you don't diagnose what was wrong, or you can't actually get better because you don't know the steps to take, then you're not going to beat the Jets. Does that make any sense? So you want to talk about the Jets, and you want to say it was just one game, but Levis will get better. It'll be fine. And Levis's coaches are saying this was a problem and this was a problem, and Levis is saying, I didn't think that was a problem. And you don't think that that's going to slow down the ability for him to correct the mistakes. Like, if Levis's coaches actually do think that he ran the play correctly or read the play correctly on the pick 6, then you're definitely not going to beat the Jets because your coaches might be as dumb as your quarterback. That's a problem. Like, I want to correct the problems, but with any problem in life, the only way to correct the problem is to recognize the problem. And right now, between the coach, the quarterback, and the offensive coordinator, I got 3 different stories. And then when it comes to Levis, somebody texts into the text line, and I think this is a very good question because a lot of people are using this crutch. And this texter says, if the standard for bad performance is acceptable until the second season, why are we tripping over Levis's performance because he hasn't played 17 games yet? Because again, the jump is between year 1 and year 2. The jump is not between game 17 and game 18. Again, we're talking about an entire offseason where you have knowledge about what to do. You know what is required to do the job. You know what it takes. You know what's expected of you. You know how to be a pro. You know that you're the quarterback. That is all baked into the cake. So this entire offseason, Will Levis could correct the mistakes of last year. And he spent the entire offseason working with his guru coach, going over those same mistakes. There is a Sports Illustrated article where they dissect a mistake that Will Levis made in the Falcons game. And Brian Callahan asks Levis where he made the mistake. And Levis says, I should have just checked the ball underneath the chig. And he's like, yep, A+. So they spent all that time making the corrections. And then you finally go out and get to show what you were doing. And it was a big, fat turd. And it was, in my opinion, a sign that you didn't learn anything. And so if you didn't learn anything over the entire course of an offseason, how are you going to learn something over 3 days? I mean, that's the problem. That's the issue. But if you want me to sit there and tell you right now, like, okay, let's move on to the Jets. What can the Titans do to beat the Jets? Well, they can have the quarterback not play like a moron. That would help. But how much faith am I supposed to have when, again, the quarterback went out there yesterday and said that he was thinking about DeMario on the Jets, only for us to look at their roster and see that they don't even have a player named DeMario. Let's just call it what it is. If Will Levis read the field correctly, like Nick Holt said, and he still threw that pick six, you don't have any chance of him ever being a good quarterback. You better hope Nick Holtz was lying. Like, you better hope Nick Holtz was lying. Because if that's the truth, you have no chance. Zero. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. 1025, 106 The Game. Let's talk about White Bison. That's right. White Bison knows what you're craving this time of the year. Pumpkin. So try their new pumpkin cookie frappe, pumpkin spice latte, or vanilla shaken espresso with pumpkin soft whip. They are irresistible. Plus, White Bison Rewards members get your 8th drink free. And while you're there, check out their sandwiches and wraps, all freshly prepared right when you order. And for the sweet tooth, try their fresh baked pastries. They go perfectly with premium coffee expertly prepared by the roast masters. White Bison, finely crafted for your everyday.
who should get the game ball is Will Levis. Look, here's what I'll say about Will Levis. Okay, you just lost one of the best coaches in football, Mike Vrabel, because you Rand Carthon was convinced Will Levis is going to be the guy. Okay, so Rand Carthon won the power struggle in your hometown there of Nashville. And they built everything this off. Brian Callahan got the job because of Will Levis. Every move they made this offseason is to make Will Levis better. And I'm telling you, I will be completely shocked. I'll give it more time. But Will Levis is a robot playing quarterback. Look, he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. He was horrendous in this game. Fumbled. The ball sprayed all over. He's got guys wide open. He can't get them the football. Look, that was the best thing going for Chicago was Will Levis.
Lombardi didn't sugarcoat it. I'll give you that much. 615-737-1025 TD in 30 minutes. Ian, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the phones?
To the phones.
Phone line driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Brad is up next on Will Levis. Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, Jarrett, I'll tell you, after taking a few days to absorb what happened on Sunday, I've got my own theory on what happened. And I've seen a lot of things being thrown out there, like maybe it's his intelligence. He's a dope, or coachability. Maybe it's a new offense. I've even heard, hey, it's only a 10 start. I don't think it's any of those things. I think it really comes down to a behavioral issue. You know, the word that best describes it is temperament. He really can't help himself. He is smart. I think he knows what to do. It's almost like people who struggle with anger. You know, they know right from wrong, but in the moment, in the heat of battle, they snap, or they blow up, or they just can't do it. It's like when he's in the game, it's this inclination in his behavior, and that's what takes over. And then he gets done. They talk to him about it. You know, he knows right from wrong. I just don't know if that's something that he can change, and that's what concerns me. But I will say, going into the Jets game, just me personally, if he has a better game and we win, it'll sure hold off this onslaught. But if he goes out there and does the exact same thing, I think this leash is way, way shorter than a lot of people think on him. So I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of his job for the year. Now, if they go 7 weeks in and they switch to quarterbacks because Levis is getting you killed, then like it was his job for the year, but they've just kind of given up. You know, again, the Falcons last year did that with Desmond Ridder. But I want to go back to your first thing about the behavioral element of this and what it has to do with Will Levis. I remember last year after they went on the road to Tampa and they lost, and I watched the film, and I noticed watching the tape that Will Levis at the time, and I still stand by this, Will Levis has anxiety. That's the vibe I got watching the tape. And what happens is when he gets anxious, he panics and tries to win the game on one play. They got down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter at Tampa, and he threw 2 YOLO balls down the field. And all of a sudden, Tim Kelly, who had already seen him do it before at Pittsburgh, Tim Kelly decides we're going to start throwing bubble screens to Kyle Phillips because we are taking the option for Levis to throw the ball down the field away from him because he can't be responsible for that. And I do think in kind of the moments where everything matters, like the moments where you're tired, the moments where you're nervous, the moments where the natural, whatever it is, just clicks on, the fight or flight mode, the whatever you want to call it. I heard Tom Brady talk about in a Super Bowl. He got a concussion one time. It was the Falcons Super Bowl, and he played through it. And he said, yeah, my brain just went on autopilot. There's something about Tom Brady that when the game becomes bigger and the moments are tenser, Brady sees everything better. That Brady's natural inclination is just better than everybody else's. And with Will Levis, there is something about when the game starts to get out of hand and starts to slip away from him, he's not trying to go out there and do something stupid, but his just natural personality decides, I've got to do it right now. And it leads him to going out there and doing the things that make Tim Kelly want to take the ball out of his hands. It leads to him in the fourth quarter at Pittsburgh on Thursday night last year, throwing a ball on the sideline for DeAndre Hopkins that DeAndre had to break up, throwing 2 balls in the end zone, one that slipped out of a guy's hands, the other that landed in the guy's hands in Pittsburgh and ended the game. There's a big, there is, when the game gets tough, Levis seems to start making bad decisions. And again, I think it's an anxiety thing, but I don't know. But I absolutely think the caller's right, and I think it is a behavioral thing. And I couldn't tell you how you stop it. That's why if I could, I'd be making millions of dollars coaching the football team right now. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter says, in one line, can you sum up what the end goal of all the Levis talk is? I'm getting bored, man, and I want to switch to a different channel. Well, first of all, go ahead. Secondly, the end game with the Levis talk is to diagnose what's wrong with the football team so that they can get it right. And yet it feels like everybody whose job it is to get it right over there seems to want to shy away from the truth. And I don't know if they're just shying away from the truth with us or if they're shying away from the truth with themselves. But again, with every problem in life that you want to correct, you have to recognize what the problem is. So when, again, Nick Holt says Will Levis knew that he was hot on the 3rd and 6 blitz from the Chicago Bears and yet didn't throw the ball hot, I got problems, because either he didn't know it was hot or he knew it was hot and he didn't do what he knew he was supposed to do, and we got big problems there. Talking about the end goal. The end goal is to get it right. That's the end goal. Austin says, what about the Miami game last year? He did just fine under pressure. In the Miami game last year, Will Levis hit DeAndre Hopkins for a big throw across the middle, and DeAndre ran with the ball and ran it up the field. But if you remember in that game, Will Levis threw a pick 6, and while they did find a way to win, and it was great, I am starting to regret that they won that game, because I do wonder if they had not won that game, would they have been picking 3rd or 4th? And would we be talking about Drake May? Would they have been as committed to Levis? And I'm wondering if in the end that was a bad thing. But one fourth quarter comeback does not make up for all of the mistakes. And it certainly doesn't make up for what happened last week on Sunday. Dylan says the Titans need to be giving Will Levis CBD. I mean, maybe. For whatever that's worth. Dylan says, personally, I thought in the first half he made good decisions on throws. He did not make bad choices, such as when he dirted the football into the ground on a screen on 3rd down, getting off the field to punt. I think the bad stuff showed up in the second half. That's what gives me hope, is that he showed in the first half that he did listen to the coaching. In the second half, he showed me he didn't listen. So it's not all bad. It's just him trying to remember that he doesn't have to win or lose the game on every single throw or all in one throw. Again, when do these guys tell us whether or not they're stars? In the second half, in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes, when guys are running the offense, congratulations, you follow the coaching in the first half. The second half, not so much. And the other thing to keep in mind is what they were doing really, really well in the first half wasn't Will Levis. It was Tony Pollard running the football. That's what they did really well, is they were moving the football. What did Chicago do at halftime? They said, we're just not going to let you run the ball. And you can always do that because you can always bring down one more than the other team can block. And that's what Chicago did. And so, yeah, I agree that it was the right call to dirt it on the screen pass. And for the most part, Levis avoided the big mental mistake in the first half. In fact, I thought the Titans were going to win the game simply because they let Chicago make all the mistakes. Then Jack Gibbons gets blown up, and all of a sudden, when the momentum turned, there was nothing Will Levis could do. and Chicago had all the momentum and he felt it. And that's why, again, this wasn't a conscious decision for Will Levis to run to the left and try to shovel past the ball out of bounds, do the stupidest thing humanly possible. It was just what naturally took over for him. And that is very, very scary and very disappointing. One texter says he might have known that he was hot, but as we've seen, he probably just tried to slide left and play hero ball instead of throwing hot. If anything, that's a worse look for him. If he knew he was hot on a 3rd and 6 when they were blitzing and the Titans could not pass protect, and he didn't think the ball had to come out hot for whatever reason it might have been, that's a problem. If that's the case, that's a problem. Again, I mean, Will Levis, I think, was all academic honor roll and everything at Penn State and Kentucky, so I don't think that he's book stupid. But I think when the going gets tough, his brain's starting to click off, and that makes me very nervous. And I was hopeful that he would learn those things from year 1 to year 2. But in game 1 of year 2, he proved the opposite. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. I do have a thought on the New York Jets, who looked horrific on Monday Night Football. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. Hiller takes great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. You've heard me talk about Hiller and how it feels like being a part of a family. Well, this month, Hiller is treating you like family too with their Friends and Family Savings event. Happy Hiller Club members save up to 25% off your first HVAC plumbing and electrical repair. And everybody else gets a 10% discount. Present your coupon and save. Just visit happyhiller.com to download a coupon today. And again, you've heard me talking about how I'm a member of the Happy Hiller Club. This is one of the best examples of the kind of special perks that you get when you join. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Go out to San Francisco against Buck and Aikman, all right, and they lay an absolute freaking egg. They don't show up. Their defense was Buchanan could have scored against them defensively. Their defense was awful.
Relax.
They couldn't not relax. Their defense was awful. They were too conservative offensively early in the first 2 or 3 drives, running the ball first and second down. I mean, the Niners didn't have Trent Williams. He had to leave because of an IV, for crying out loud. Ayuk is terrible, jumping touchdown passes, and McCaffrey didn't even play. Think about it for a minute. And by the way, Shanahan's got to answer this. How in the world did the running back say, hey, I knew Friday I was going to play, and then Shanahan says, well, that's not true. Well, hold on now. What is it? How about if somebody wanted to go out there and take McCaffrey with their fantasy team and couldn't do it because they didn't know he was playing? And the boys got to look into that, for crying out loud. But this is more about the Jets. This is a disgrace. This is terrible. I know it's the first game at San Francisco and everything else. You got to play better than that. I mean, I went to bed at 7.5 minutes to go to read about Penn State, for crying out loud, in 1970, and you booked out. Read it Saturday. That's what I was doing. I mean, this is ridiculous. That performance by the defense especially. I'm not even going to kill Rodgers.
They don't call it Mad Dog for nothing. Mad Dog Russo just laying in to the Jets. And I can't tell you how much I hate what happened Monday night to the Jets and the fallout. You know, I saw on First Take yesterday, they had the Titans and Jets at the bottom of the screen. And you'll never guess how much time in that conversation they had where it said Titans and Jets at the bottom, how much time they spent dedicated talking about the Titans part of the Titans-Jets game on Sunday. Ian, you want to take a guess?
15 seconds.
Lower.
0.
Ding, 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 ding. So the Jets, ever since Monday night, have been getting barbecued, both in New York and across the country. And that's par for the course with the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, in his press conference yesterday, talked about everybody relaxing once again. They're feeling the heat. From Salah to the defense, which was atrocious, to Rodgers, to everybody on that team. And they're probably going to put together their best effort for you on Sunday. This is why I always talk about wanting the team that you're about to play to win. We call it fat and happy. If the New York Jets had gone on the road to San Francisco and they had blistered the 49ers, Mad Dog Russo wouldn't be yelling and screaming about how bad the Jets are. Mad Dog Russo would be talking about the Jets headed to the Super Bowl. That's what happens with the Jets, with the Giants, with the Cowboys. Never happens with the Titans, but that's what happens with those teams. The Titans also get fat and happy. That's why those Vrabel special games where nobody gave them a chance to win, they always seem to find a way. And those Vrabel special games where they would play Tyrod Taylor and the Texans at home and get wiped out, well, that's the other side of the coin. So absolutely everything that I predicted that was going to happen, the fallout from the Jets game, losing to the 49ers in embarrassing fashion, the way it's happened. And if you guys think Aaron Rodgers is going to take that sitting down, you guys do not know Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I about spit out my coffee when I heard Chris Sanders say he thinks the Titans are going to win because of Aaron Rodgers. Talking about, well, you know, I didn't think Rodgers was very good on Monday night, as if your quarterback was good on Sunday. But again, this idea that you don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to get back to work. Look, I know Aaron Rodgers is crazy. And I know Aaron Rodgers is old. And I know Aaron Rodgers is a diva. But Aaron Rodgers, like any other narcissist, knows you got to walk the walk a little bit. So Aaron's going to put everything he's got into this game. Monday night might have just been a warm-up for Aaron. He didn't play in the preseason. So the fallout that has come, the inevitable fallout, the expected fallout that has come from the just absolute butt kicking that the Jets got on national TV at the hands of the 49ers has led to everything that I did not want going into Sunday's game. I hate when teams are put on the burner because they always prepare harder. They always focus more. And that's what's, I'm afraid, going to happen Sunday. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. One texter says, it's crazy that Will Levis is the oldest quarterback in the AFC South. Is it hard? Because I think Levis is 25 and Lawrence is 24 and Richardson's 22. And I'm sure Stroud's probably like 23, somewhere in that ballpark. I think it is the fact that Levis, again, when the game gets tough, Levis's brain kicks into another gear. I think that's what's hard for Brian Callahan to overcome. One texter says athletes are tutored through those classes, so a degree for Will Levis and being an academic honor roll member at Penn State does not mean anything. Ian, you buy that? Do we discredit Will Levis being smart based on do we say that it doesn't apply that he was an academic honor roll guy?
To football?
Yeah. Well, again, he's smart at least off the field.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
But the texter says that they're all tutored, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, no. Well, then they'd all be that.
I'll say this. I went to college with a girl who's been very, 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 very successful. I don't want to say what sport she played, but I think you guys could probably put two and two together. And her girlfriend, who is actually really bright and really successful now, they're married to different women now, but her girlfriend did all of her homework in college. She made the honor roll every semester. And I'm not sure picked up a single book the entire time she was in college. But that's just my experience. That doesn't mean that that's always the case. It's like welfare. There actually is a benefit for some people that are on welfare, and then they get off welfare. But then we hear the stories about the people that abuse welfare, and then people get angry about their tax dollars being spent on welfare. Do not text into the text line about welfare because I do not care. One texter says, Will Levis will be benched by November unless he dramatically improves. Coaches can't do much after week 1. Coaches can do a lot. The problem is if Will Levis is unwilling to listen to the coaching, or if Will Levis can't listen to the coaching or comprehend the coaching, then it doesn't make a difference what the coaches do. One texter says, I can only imagine how a second half will play out if the Titans go in down 17. Yeah. That I'm not so sure of. Ryan from Nashville texts into the show and says, would you rather have Will Levis or Bryce Young? I haven't watched Bryce Young play, so it's hard for me to say, but I know they were down 30-0 at halftime. So I don't know, make of that what you will. TD is here for the TD Power Hour. He will sit down with us coming up next. Where do the Titans go from here? How do they diagnose the issues? We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios. It is Thursday. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport from ESPN. TD, I'm worried about my quarterback. Worried might be a stretch. It might be worse than that. I'm down.
Okay.
I'm down bad.
Well, you know what? This is kind of like an onion. So we're going to work through some of these layers, right?
We're going to peel them back.
Yeah. So your issue with Levis saying that, he read the play right. The coach is saying he read the play right and all of that. I want you to understand, like, you could read the play right. He saw that he knew that he was hot. You had Kyler Gordon coming up and he blitzed. That was why, in essence, he ended up getting sacked by DeMarcus Walker. He felt that coming. He knew it was coming, so he moved to the side. Now, I don't profess to know everything, right? But I firmly believe that when he says he didn't make that zero check, he didn't communicate with the receivers. You know what I mean? And so they weren't on the same page, and he got caught in a situation where he ended up getting sacked, well, should have gotten sacked, and he threw the ball when he shouldn't have. Now, I talked to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd said he wasn't expecting the ball to be thrown in that situation. And that was not, to use his words. He didn't say that's why he didn't box out, but in essence, that's why he didn't box out, because he didn't expect the ball to be thrown. So you have multiple things going on at once, right? It's just like you reading a commercial, right?
Sure.
You know what you're reading, but you might accidentally say 106 the game instead of 102. Does that mean that you're dumb and don't know I just made a human error. You know what I mean? So you knew what was going on. You just didn't make the right decision. Or in that case, like, you didn't read it right. And that's in essence what happened. So, I mean, you could have a bunch of things going on. And then when they say that they really like the way he understood things, so he came off the field and they're having, like, he knew exactly, like, man, I know I can't throw that. Right. And then in other times, because this goes back all the way to training camp and even before then, to where they've talked repeatedly about how they like the way he's in tune with his mechanics. Right. If it throws off, he knows what he did wrong, and now he just has to fix it. And just the same, like the interception in joint practices with Seattle, right? He knows, like, buddy, you can't throw that ball. You can't be late and outside. It's going to get picked off just like it did. And that's what happened every time. And he knows what he should have done. He told Callahan what he should have done. But now it's a matter, and the thing, there's levels to this, right? There's phases.
Sure.
Right? So right now it seems like he's in the identifying it phase. He has to move to the executing phase. And that's where the issue is it's actual execution. It's not being able to diagnose it. He knows what the problem is. He just has to execute.
That's my problem, is that I think that, like, I agree. I think he comes back to the field and says to the coach on the sideline, like, yeah, I knew it was zero blitz and I should have got the ball out and I should have just thrown it away, or I should have taken the sack, or I should have. But in that moment, when it gets to the nitty gritty, the ice water in the veins moment for some guys, I think his brain or whatever just clicks into a different gear, and he starts doing things that, remember the Thursday nighter at Pittsburgh and how good he looked in the first half, and how free and easy he looked, and they moved the ball down the field, and remember at the end of the game when he doesn't see Kyle Phillips on fourth down underneath.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why he doesn't see them, and this is where I want you to be more detailed, right? Because I asked him about that. I asked Tim Kelly about that. And the way that was set up, that's an alert. Is Traylon Burks and the corner. If they're one-on-one and there's no safety over top, the alert, go to that, right? And Tim Kelly was like, I can't tell him that he made the wrong decision. That's what we tell him to do over and over again. So here it was. He did what the coaching staff told him to do, right? Sure. That's why he didn't see Phillips over there, because he was focused on the alert.
But remember that last drive against Pittsburgh, they're down by 4 and they're driving, and he throws the first ball on the sideline, and DeAndre has to make a great play like Darrelle Revis in order to break it up. And then he throws 2 balls in the end zone. The first one gets dropped. The second one gets picked. And it's like, those kind of things, I'm like, all right, that's year one. Like that is, he's out there and they're going to sit there and say, Will, I know you think that you've got 28 seconds and you've got to throw that ball in the end zone and you've got to, but now you learn differently. And I know you think that you've got to throw it to DeAndre there, but if that ball gets picked,
He's forcing it. He
right.
forced it.
Well, now it's year two.
Right. It is year two. But again, you have to understand, like, not everybody is going to instantly just have everything where it needs to be. Not everybody's going to be like that. I'm not saying that Will Levis is that dude. I'm not saying that hey, look, keep number 8 in the team apparel stores. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying
you're not saying order a new shipment of jerseys, but don't get rid of the ones you have now.
Right. And the thing is, you got to remember, like, there's a progression. Like, the only way you get better at football or at anything is by doing it. This man has played 10 games. Now, does that excuse that mistake that he made? No way. No way. He needs to face that mistake that he made. But does it mean you see that mistake and say, hey, there's no way he could be good? No. This is what they're working with, and it's a gradual process. And that's the thing. And I say it all the time. You don't get too high or too low. Okay, look, I know that this is an issue. I saw this movie before. Right, in Philly with Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it didn't end well. You also have to factor in the injury he had, and then the locker room split, and Nick Foles did what he. There's a lot of things, but I've seen a guy be that hero, want to be that hero all the time, and it worked for him, but then it also backfires. And honestly, it's almost like L'Jarius Sneed. It's the cost of doing business. You want a guy, Brett Favre. I tell you what. Now, I'm not comparing Levis to Brett Favre. Let's get it straight.
Sure.
But imagine if the NFL had the same opinion of Brett Favre that you're having of Levis, right? Oh, he can never be good. He's too risky. He does this, he does that. We wouldn't have seen the Hall of Famer that he is.
The thing about
it's patience,
Favre, though, and it's hard
and
to
development.
And it's hard to look at Favre because, we know how that story ends.
Right.
Whereas with Levis, we don't. The thing about Favre is, with Favre, you knew what you were getting. Like, you knew that he was going to throw the ball as far as he could, as hard as he could. He did not care. And you were going to win like that, and you're going to lose a Super Bowl because he throws the ball into double coverage right to Darren Sharper in the NFC title game.
Yeah, and I'm talking about in Atlanta.
When they kicked him out to Green Bay.
Yeah.
But
because that's in essence where Levis is right now.
Sure, that second year where
Right.
But I do think with Levis, like, what I don't like is in the first half, he made smart decisions. Like when he dirted the football, and I really just felt like at halftime, I'm like, this is great. Just let Chicago make every big mistake and just don't do. And then, Givens gets beat on the punt, and now the game starts to turn. And I mean, you were in the stadium watching on TV. It felt like I could feel the momentum.
Hear it.
Yeah.
Yes. You can hear it.
And so that starts to turn. And then it's almost like Levis, his body he just starts convulsing out there of like, okay, I've got to make the play now. And and I think a caller called in Monday and said, it's not hero ball, it's panic ball. And I think that is the perfect way to say it. And I'm just like, at 25 years old, going into year 2, like, that's where I need to start seeing some of the corrections being made. And I don't see the corrections being made.
It's the first game of year 2, Jared. Like, I could see if we're week 8, and you're like, oh, yeah. It's the first game of year 2 in a new system with new receivers. Like, it's the first game of year 2. Now, there was a thought that I had, and it completely slipped my mind. But I think, when you look at the man, I'm trying to regain that thought. I can't believe it just slipped my mind.
I hate that feeling. I've told stories sometimes on the radio where I tell such a long story.
Here it is. You got to remember that, like, you could go in and you could train, right? But then when you put it to a game, typically what happens is you resort back to your habits.
What's Mike Tyson always say?
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not along those lines, though. I'm talking about, like, actually going through and rehearsing
and
practicing. Then you get in the game, you resort back to your habits. But we all know a habit takes what? What does it take to form a habit? Well,
you have to do it for like 21 days in a row.
Over time.
Right.
Over time is the key part. All I'm saying is it's way too early to just say, yeah, this dude cannot be good at all. It's way too early. Too early.
And what I'm worried about is,
and it's fine to be worried about that, but the degree of worry to where you're worried to the point where you have convinced yourself that this man cannot be
Dan Marino.
Oh, Jared Stillman, come on, for heaven's sake. Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks ever.
But that's
but that's your problem.
But I can go get Ryan
That's-
Tannehill to
that's-
go be fine.
That's your problem. Don't be unrealistic.
No, but I can
you're
go get,
you're saying you
I
want
want a
this man. You
star.
want this man 10 games in his career to be Dan Frippen Marino.
I want
Are
to
you-
see
are you
some
serious?
Dan Marino signs.
Are you serious?
You go back
Come
to
on,
Wentz.
man.
Year 2, it looked like Wentz was gonna be a star. Like
But remember,
star.
Wentz started a full 17-game season, and I'll guarantee you, in year 2, there were mistakes like that boneheaded mistake. They were there. You're going to have those mistakes, but after 10 games to expect the man to be Dan Marino, like let's not do that. I mean, you could at least say, okay, after 10 games, yeah, he needs to be in the upper half of the quarterbacks in the league. Like, come on.
I just see no Dan Marino like signs. I just don't see any superstar like signs.
This conversation, like you've taken it at just completely Dan Marino though.
No, but this is my whole
brother,
point.
My brother.
I know what you're saying, and most people would say what you're saying.
My brother.
But I want him to be a star. I don't want him to be average.
I know when Ryan Porth first, after 10 shows with Ryan Porth producing, I know he didn't say he wants you to be Mad Dog Russo, like right now.
I mean,
come
I would
on,
say
man.
I think they thought I was pretty good, but
Come on. Seriously though, like there's a standard and then there's a reasonable standard.
I will say this though, and this is just, again, I'm just saying this because it did happen, not because I'm insecure, but it's going to sound like I'm insecure. When I was in Louisville, Scott Masteller, he's kind of like the guru.
I remember this story.
Yeah, Scott Masteller was consulting for the radio station in Louisville. He was at ESPN. He was the guy that was the PD in Portland, hired Cowherd out of Portland to ESPN. And when I was in Louisville and I was like 24 years old, I was Levis's age. He was in Louisville and he basically told me, he was like, yeah, you've got Colin Cowherd potential. And for me, that was a moment for me where I was like, wow. I was like, that was like a call my dad moment to be like, hey, the guy that discovered Colin is telling me that I got Colin's level of talent.
Your homie that's a coach in Oregon, the OC. Will Stein. Ask him what he thinks about coaching a player with a lot of potential. He'll tell you.
What
most
Floyd
coaches
used to say?
They'll say, son, your potential could mess around and get me fired.
Floyd said potential's French for not good enough. That was kind of the old saying there. But I go back to the Levis thing where, like, again, was I Colin Cowherd then? Absolutely not. Right now, but I'm kidding. But was I Colin Cowherd then? No, I wasn't. But there were like signs, I think, that they saw. And when it comes to Levis, it's like, I don't see any Dan Marino signs. I don't see any Mahomes. I don't see any. And that's what we wanted Levis to be. Because again,
you're asking to see signs of the man who is indisputably the best quarterback in the NFL right now. You're asking signs
for a star.
You want to see signs
like CJ Stroud's giving me those signs. Richardson gave me those
Stroud,
signs on
as
Sunday.
good as he's been, has shown me nothing to mention him in the same sentence as Patrick Mahomes, let alone Dan Marino. You got to just stop.
By the way, if we were redoing the top 100 NFL players that they did 5 years ago, I think I'd kick Marino out and put Mahomes in.
Woo. And then like the top, like.
Yeah, because there were like 8 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I mean, Otto Graham and Sammy Baugh, I can't tell you.
It's hard to talk on them, right?
Right.
We just see black and white videos.
Right.
Yeah.
The leather helmets.
Yeah.
So Staubach, I believe it was Staubach, Bradshaw, Marino, Elway, Manning, Brady, and Favre. And I think at this point, you have to take one of those guys out and put Mahomes in. And I would take out Favre and I would take out Marino and I would put Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers in. And since then, Aaron's won 2 MVPs and Mahomes has won, I believe, 2 MVPs and 2 Super Bowls. There's no way to not have Mahomes in there.
You got to have Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers is arguably. Listen, man, and not just because I'm here in Nashville and it's a team that, moved here from Houston, but I mean, we're talking pure passer, like it doesn't get better than Warren Moon. If you're just talking pure passer.
But again, MVPs and Super Bowls and we're done, Elway and Brady.
No, listen, you asked me best quarterback ever. I reluctantly, because and I've told you this before, I love Drew Bledsoe. Love him. One of my favorite quarterbacks ever. But yeah, I think Brady is the best.
Yeah.
He just is.
All right. More with TD. That was a long segment on Levis. 615-737-1025. There are some other problems I have from the game on Sunday that I want TD's opinion on. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. I'm ready to hit the panic button. I'm ready to use the B word, bust on Scoronski. Your thoughts?
I'm not ready to call him a bust yet, but everything that you said, he displayed in this opener. He couldn't pass block. His feet were slow. And that's one of the reasons that he got beat. I mean, the book on him now, from a pass rush standpoint, is make him move his feet. In other words, line up on his outside when he steps out there to block you in a pass protection, loop inside and make him slide back in to get you, or vice versa, right? Because he's not reacting fast enough. I think he's got fast enough feet. I mean, he played left tackle in the Big Ten out in space and was phenomenal as a pass protector there. But things happen faster inside a guard. And he's got to be able to move those feet faster. And I think a lot of that has to do with recognition.
TD, I'm worried about Scoronski. And you know it's not good when Trevor, who has been, I'd say that Trevor is probably a little bit more glass half full than I am at times. Even Trevor was watching Scoronski on Sunday, and he was like, and you know how I feel about guards that are picked in the first round in the top 11, and your thoughts where we are with Scoronski right now.
Yeah, well, as far as where you feel about guards, like you got to understand, like this ain't the same NFL as a few years ago. There is absolutely a premium placed on interior trench play.
Who is the top guard taken this year?
I mean, off the top, I couldn't tell you. But still, that being said, like we could look it up, or I'm sure Ian is on it now. But there's a premium placed on that. Centers too, right? Interior defensive linemen. You see what I'm saying? So the game is played inside out as far as that guard, center, guard triangle, protecting that. Matter of fact, I'm sure you heard Brian Callahan on Monday when I asked him about the impact of having the pocket pushed back into the quarterback's face.
I did hear that.
He very eloquent. By the way, shout out Brian Callahan. Excellent job of just really detailing every question that we ask. We appreciate that. But I think Scoronski,
as compared to,
we just gonna leave it alone. You know what I mean? But even he at times, like I remember talking to him about stuff and he was detailed. Yeah. But as for Scoronski is concerned, you're right. Like he played like cheeks on Sunday. Like I'll admit it. Like he did not play well, and you wonder, okay, why is it an issue with his footwork? You added this weight. You had, and that's the other thing. I know you said that he had a trash camp. I don't think he didn't have a trash camp.
But do you remember we were at the Sounds one time, and I looked at you and I was like, everybody keeps telling me he's having a good camp, and I'm watching him in the one-on-ones get turnstiled, and you're like, you're not going to win every rep, and that is
You're
true.
not going to. But also you
like,
have to understand the moment, right? Like you look at that situation. That's just like you see a DB getting beat in one-on-ones all the time.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Like, all right, man, it's cool. I see. You're used to having somebody on both sides of you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that in this case. It's going to happen.
But he's still getting turnstiled in the games.
Right. He did get turnstiled in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing is, this game that he played, I don't feel it has anything to do with, it's not a reflection of his camp. I don't think he had a bad camp and had a bad game. He had a solid camp, a bad game. So now it's like, okay, how do you go back and you fix things? Like, how do you speed up the feet and keep them from being slow? How do you get the eyes right? Like, how do you do all that? And the other thing that you have to look at when you have a player, it's just like you talking on the mic here. Like, if you're not confident about what you're saying, you're not going to say it with authority. And just the same, if you're not confident going against another man that's abnormally large, you're going to have a bad day. So they got to be careful with that. And that's what happened to Dylan Radins for a period of time. And Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, who we had one-on-one on Talking with TD, by the way. You have to keep that confidence up in addition to getting all the techniques right. So, look, I would be a little concerned about Scoronski, without a doubt. And you know who's on the docket this week? And, man, Big Quentin Williams.
Yeah.
So that could definitely be a problem.
One thing that bothered me about Tajay Spears on Sunday, and I know Brian Callahan said he wanted to get him the ball more, and I understand that, but I mean, I'd rather give the ball to Tony Pollard more, but I understand that because what did Tony have, like 20 touches and Spears had 9 or something like that? Or are my numbers off, something like that?
20 to, I think it was like 20 to 8, 16 carries, 4 carries 4 receptions, 4 receptions. The targets were a little different, though.
Yeah.
But touches wise, yeah.
That 3rd and short where TJ Edwards was able to bring down Spears, knowing what Spears' game is, I need Spears to run away from him. Like, I need Spears to explode up and get that first down. And I do think some of the things with Spears is kind of feeling out for the coaching staff and for him what his role is ultimately going to be. But I was disappointed that he's got a linebacker with a little bit of space, and I think he's got to – and I know TJ Edwards is a good player. He's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got to be able to accelerate into getting that first down.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a tough one.
Right. You want a guy to, especially if his opportunities are limited, it's like, hey, bro, you better take advantage of the
you're
limited
going to be
ones
the
you
third
get.
down back. And we throw it to you short on 3rd down. We need you to get the first down.
I get it. And there was one, I think he ran across or two. It was like 3rd and 4 or something like that.
That's what I think I'm talking about, where Edwards got him from the back.
That was Edwards that got him?
I think so.
Okay. I thought he grabbed his – well, either way, like whether he grabbed his top part or the feet, like you want your guy and you expect your guy to break one tackle. So
how good's the defense?
The potential to be a lot better. I talked to L'Jarius Sneed, Nick Suss and I from the Tennessean, and he's like, man, I played like SHIT.
He cursed. Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? and I was like, you gave up 2 receptions for 18 yards. And he was like, but one of them was on 4th down. And yeah, he's definitely right.
I like that attitude by Sneed.
And I say, is this the standard? Like, that's the standard? And he was like, yeah, man, I'll hold myself to that standard to where I don't want to give up any catches. So they played well, but they could be better, right? Get more turnovers. When you have an offense that's struggling like that, like Denard Wilson said today, you want to generate turnovers to get them the ball in favorable positions so that they could have more opportunities to score, especially as bad as they're struggling, right? Get a tourniquet, stop the bleeding, and that's something that has to happen in those type of games where your lead is just being salted away the way it was. So you have that. I think when you look at the front, I mean, Tavondre Sweat. I told him to watch Haloti Ngata. I said, go watch Haloti Ngata because you guys are both big guys. I gave him the benefit of the doubt being at 340, but they're like essentially the same size with really good feet, and you saw that quick arm over that he used. So you pair that with the bull rush, like this guy could be a real legit problem in the middle. And then you got Jeffrey Simmons next to him, so that's going to be good. I think
you cannot run with Sweat, and like you can't run at it.
No,
because he'll just eat the offensive lineman and then tackle the running back with the offensive lineman like stuck to him. He'll just
not only will he do that, and that's the misconception with him that he's just this big chubby guy that's going to clog up lanes. No, this dude could actually the Roger McCreary tackle for a loss. He was in the backfield basically as soon as DeAndre Swift got the football, and he was in the backfield because of the feet. He was able to get around the guard or the center, I think it was, and made Swift have to redirect, and that's why McQuarrie was able to swoop in. And so you have those things too. So those guys up front, like that's it. You just have to be able to make better plays on the football. Like that throw to DJ Moore, right? It was intended to Moore, but Quandre Diggs came up and he violently attacked the football and did the perfect thing, punched it up in the air, but nobody, Rome Odunze out jumped Kenneth Murray Jr. to catch the ball. And then when Amani Hooker blasted him, right? Nobody was there to get the fumble, right? Attack the ball with violence and do what? Populate to the ball. Those are two things that Denard Wilson said are imperative to do. That's an example. If that was done, they did one or two things, right? They didn't populate to the ball. That's why the fumble wasn't recovered.
Okay, TD's thoughts on the Jets. We'll do that next ahead of Sunday. And, of course, we'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
There's no panic in him, for sure. He was a calm force on the sideline, and I think last night provided a lot of closure for him with regards to finishing the game and knocking that out.
That was Robert Salah, who, by the way, TD, I'm not a huge fan of.
Really?
I'm not a Robert Salah fan.
No.
I feel like Robert Salah, first of all, in today's NFL, I naturally lean more towards offensive coach than I do defensive coach, especially when he took over the Jets and they knew they were going to take a quarterback with the second pick.
Mhm.
I'd rather have an offensive coach than a defensive coach. But my main issue with Robert Salah is I feel like the Jets always find themselves in these screwed up situations, and I feel like he's always making matters worse. Like when, Aaron Rodgers missed minicamp and he was like, yeah, that's an unexcused absence, and then provided no context. And so then Aaron's calling up McAfee, basically saying like Salah knew he was just causing problems that don't need to be caused. That being said, Sunday against the Titans, I am worried about the way the Jets got their butts kicked on Monday Night Football. I always want a team to win a big game, not get embarrassed in a big game before they play the Titans. What do we think of the Jets? What do we think of what we saw Monday? And what do we think of what they're actually going to look like on Sunday?
Now, to your point, the worst way you want to see a team lose, especially a team with a head coach like Robert Salah that's so focused on defense, is you hate to see them lose by getting the ball shoved down their throat.
Yeah.
As a defensive coach, like you hate that above all else. And I mean, you hear a lot of people laugh at Jeffrey Simmons and, some of the other guys that say that first and foremost, they don't want to let no one run the ball on them. Because it's just the mindset of defense, right? So that happened. I don't know if the Titans are going to be able, it's going to take a huge effort to run the football on this team. But the thing is up front, the gap guy in the gap scheme, the guys up front got to move people out of the way. That being said, you look at, the defense, Quentin Williams is in the middle of that defense. So that's going to be a problem. But their edge guys, I mean, you got young guys, and it's not the same group as before. Do you remember the guy? He signed a contract 2 weeks after killing the Titans a couple years ago, but he's not there now. John something, I forget his name, but he's not there. John Franklin, something Franklin. Yeah, but him.
I think it was John Franklin.
Okay.
I have no recollection who that is.
Yeah, he was killing the right tackle. But yeah,
was that the game where Corey Davis and Zach Wilson went nuts? Yeah,
that game. But you look at the ends, right? Will McDonald, has been so-so. Jermaine Johnson, he had a lot of stuff to say about Will Levis, but I don't think they're as strong up front as the Titans front is. So I think they have the advantage there. But then you look at the linebacker play. Quincy Williams is a really good player, though. CJ Mosley, an old vet. But that secondary, it's really going to be about now, from what I understand, DJ Reed didn't practice or he was limited today. But Sauce Gardner is he's the one. That's an eliminator. He plays side wherever he lines up. In essence, they're not really worried about that side. I think this team can. I think they can work the run, but with the Jets being so dedicated to wanting to stop the run, I feel like there's going to be opportunities in play action passing game on offense. That's how I feel.
You left out the best player on their defense.
Oh, I said Quentin Williams.
No,
DeMario.
Well, I mean, and that's another thing. Like, I get it, but it's just real. I'm sure you've been on the air and you've said whatever.
I've messed people's names up before.
It happens. It happens. But I'm not going to say that means he's not watching film.
When everybody is wondering if after what we saw Sunday, if you've got what it takes in between the years, and you get up there and you talk about DeMario on their defense and they don't have a DeMario on their team, that's bad luck.
I mean, yeah, if you want to get the white glove out and use it, okay, so be it. But
it reminded me of when Tom Brady in joint practices talked about going up against the Titans secondary and was talking about Butler and Ryan. And granted, joint practice, you're not really preparing for joint practice, but he was like, I mean, with what they've got in the secondary with Logan and Malcolm and those guys, and I know them so well, and Adare, it's just theirs. And I was like,
it happens.
Adare.
It happens. So, but I mean, I think, look, this defense is still good. I don't know that it's the same Jets defense that
was third in the league last year.
I don't know that it's that same defense. We'll see. But
what about Rodgers?
Rodgers, I think, is the big problem. And there's love seeing individual period and how they work on drills according to who they're playing. Because this week the kickball came out, right? And Clinton McMillan
Is that the matching the
matching
hand?
the hands, and he's throwing it, and you saw the guys doing that. And Aaron Rodgers, he's going to get the ball out quickly, right? So I think that's the main thing. And he's a crafty vet. He's one that hates. He's one of the main ones that talks about it, how much he hates the pocket being collapsed into his face. So that's clearly what you want to do. You want to get him rattled, and you want to get him on the move, keep him off his spot. And that's how you get him to make some of those throws that you could pick off. So you do have that. Garrett Wilson, though, I think you look at him, they move him around. That's what we did on Whiteboard Wednesday. They move him across the formation trying to find matchups. That's why I wonder if this is a week where L'Jarius Sneed will travel. Last week he played on the boundary, as Denard Wilson said, and there were other things to that. They wanted to, get Chidobe Awuzie back in the mix and get his legs under him, and that's why he came out for a bit and Brownlee came in. But I think this is a week where you could have Sneed travel with the opposing team's receiver. But you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, and I think the most important thing for this Jets team is to get the running game going.
With Breece Hall?
With Breece Hall. That's the most important thing for them, because this team, when I look at them very similar to how, you look at the older Titans teams, right? Where they want to run the football, they want to play defense, create some turnovers, and win time of possession, period.
But don't you like Breece Hall is kind of like a younger version of Tony Pollard?
Not really.
Like, I think Breece Hall, I think Breece Hall, like, especially before he tore his knee, but even last year, I mean, I think he's fast.
Yeah, I mean, I don't compare him to Tony Pollard. I just think he's like Breece Hall.
Like, I don't think he's a hammer. I don't think they wear you down with Breece Hall. I think
they can definitely wear you down with Breece Hall. To me, he's a workhorse back. Like, he's a guy you want to give the ball 15 to 20 times. That's how I look at him. And I think, you use that and you work the play action. Even though Aaron Rodgers isn't the same as he used to be, he's still capable of play fake, turning his back to the defense, flipping it back around, and seeing where he needs it and making it happen. Those are things that I think they're going to do.
How much better do you expect them to be than they were Monday night?
I think they'll be better. I don't know how much better. I think they'll be better. I still think this Titans defense is really good. I'm not going to say 49ers level, yet, but I think this Titans defense is really good. So I feel the guys up front I think they're going to whip that offensive line, to be honest with you. And I know Tyron Smith is on the team, like, yeah, cool. And your guy, Morgan Moses, but I think the interior part of it, week in and week out, I feel like the Titans are going to have that advantage there.
Your phones for TD or next, 615-737-1025 here on our program. That's 615-737-1025. Let me tell you about Window Nation. Did you know that most of your home's cold AC this summer leaked out through old windows? Yeah, that's not good. And what's not going to be good is if you let the heat out with the same old windows. Your prices are going to go up, and yet you're really not going to feel the benefit. So September, we got nice weather coming in, especially after this weekend. Nice weather coming in. It'll be a great time to replace your windows with energy-efficient windows that keep that in there and lower those bills. Who should you call? Well, I can tell you about Window Nation. That's a company I trust. I don't know any of the other window companies, but I know Window Nation. And they've got a great deal right now. Right now, buy 2 windows, you'll get 2 windows free. So for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 free. Plus, 0 down, no interest or payments for 24 months. Again, that's 0 down, no interest or payments for 24 months. So call today to get that free in-home estimate, 866-90Nation, or go online to schedule that fast, no obligation estimate at windownation.com. 866-90Nation, windownation.com. Stillman and Company, TD with us for the TD Power Hour. Let's get right to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Derek from, is that Washington?
It says Iowa.
Oh,
Iowa.
see, because
Still far away.
on the phone, you see where I saw the WA.
Oh,
right
yeah. I
side?
see what you're seeing there. Yeah.
Derek from Iowa, go ahead. You're on with TD.
Gentlemen, it is a true pleasure to get to talk to both of you. I'm big fans.
Appreciate you.
My question is, I've been pondering this since yesterday about Will Levis and his attitude. Do any of you guys feel there's like a sense of entitlement? Like you can't tell me what to do. Like I'm always right. You know, kind of like I'm 39 years old and I see it a lot in this younger generation. Maybe it's just the boomer in me, but like from what I'm gathering, it's just like he thinks he's right and everyone else is wrong. I just wonder what you guys thought about that.
Thank you, Derek.
It's kind of annoying. So
thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, no, Derek, that's an interesting viewpoint, and I get where, because Levis is so matter of fact when he talks, right? And so it's kind of like a give and a curse. Like he's very convincing. Then it's also like, you talk like you're never wrong, But if you look at it, when this dude is wrong, he jumps on it and he makes sure that he admits that he's wrong. So I'll give him that. You know what I mean? And there are some times where he's even said he was wrong when he wasn't. So I don't think there's truly that I know better than everyone else approach. But I could see where Derek is seeing is getting that.
You know who would know the answer to that? Ryan Tannehill would. Did you see what Drew Bledsoe said on Sunday?
Yes.
So I don't even know what the context of this. I think it might have been talking about how Brady was making his TV debut. Yeah. But on Countdown, Bledsoe was talking about when he got benched in Dallas about how Tony Romo became the starter. And Tony knew all the answers. Yeah. When he got benched in New England, Tom became the starter. And Tom was still like a puppy dog asking him about every kind of question, each which way. Yeah. I would love, if Ryan Tannehill had a couple cocktails or sitting around exchanging a little peace pipe and really hear what Ryan Tannehill, what his experience was with that. With what he would know, better than better than a coach, better than because it's like, I mean, Ryan Tannehill, regardless of what you think of it, he has so much experience in the NFL that it's like, Floyd told me this about Brady. He said, if Tom Brady thinks you can help him at football, he will annoy you with how much he'll ask you and learn and, demand. And I wonder that with Levis, like, is Levis sitting there with Mason Rudolph, basically being like, so when Ben was in Pittsburgh, did Ben do this? And, what about, I do wonder that. It's just something to think about, especially when I heard what Bledsoe had to say about.
Yeah. Interesting. No, that's a good point.
One texter says, TD, what's more concerning with Levis, the bonehead interception or missing wide open touchdowns, and how can either be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, look, the bonehead interception is just making him understand, like, look, the journey's over. Consider everything. It's basically weigh the pros and the cons. All right, cool. I make the throw. It's a 2-yard catch, and we still punt. Mm-hmm. Right, as Bill Belichick said. Best case scenario. Worst case
scenario, you lose a game.
Bingo. So being able to weigh that out is going to be critical for him, and being able to do it in the processing how that fraction of a second that it takes. Now the overthrows, Calvin really.
What is the diagnosis on this, doctor?
It's tough. It's tough. Like Ridley, he hinted at the wind in Soldier Field. Now listen, I hear what he's saying, but it's like you gotta hit those. You know what I mean? And then on the one where he kind of tailed it inside a bit, and it allowed, I think it was Jalen Johnson, to kind of work back to the football, and Ridley had to almost like be a defender. They have to, I think, to answer the text, it's just reps. They have to continue to rep it out. And at some point, it's going to click, but it's clearly not there now.
I was thinking that missing the touchdowns, like if you're going to miss wide open touchdowns, you probably can't be a starter in the NFL, like a good starter. If you're going to make the boneheaded plays, you can't be a backup in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just have you make plays like that consistently, just like, go ahead over to Arena League, play for the Cats, or go to the CFL, do something.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, it's not there at the at that level.
Or start for the Green Bay Packers. Which again, I mean, that would be something when he comes in here in a couple of weeks.
But I will say this about Levis too, that you have to factor into. I wonder like how much of a scramble he's going through every year, right? With all the OCs, right? And one of the a fan had sent this to me in DM, and he's right. With the constant OCs, all the newness that's going on, it's got to be tough. But you have to overcome all of that and play well.
Well, and I will say that I do think that hurt Mariota.
Yeah,
that all the
it
constant.
It's hurt a lot of quarterbacks. Yeah,
I mean, I think that switching to Adam Gase probably hurt Tannehill when he was in Miami because Adam Gase was a terrible coach.
Yeah,
and by the way, speaking of Adam Gase,
oh boy,
how about Sam Darnold on Sunday, folks? I'm just saying, Sammy D lighten it up.
He had one good game. Great
we'll see
job.
2 this week. Who do they play this week?
Did he play
San
up
Francisco?
Did he play up to Dan Marino standards?
Now we'll see that.
Did you see Dan Marino? Come on.
Well, Sammy D only had 3 touchdowns, I think, or 2 or 3. I don't even remember.
2.
Dan would have 5. That there is a little difference there.
Yeah.
Tex says, TD, what do you think about the way the team is facing adversity early in the season, and how do you think they'll bounce back?
Yeah, I think it's great that you're facing the adversity early. This gives you an early reflection of who you are and where you are. So I think they'll bounce back just because now when I say bounce back, I'm not saying like go on some 6-game win streak. I think they'll bounce back and have a good game. Those same errors that you saw last week, I don't think you're going to see this week, because just looking at the focus that this coaching staff seems to have, I believe that they're going to be able to fix those things. Now, new errors could pop up, but I think the honing in, because I mean, you talk to a defense player, they'll all tell you like turnovers.
Sure.
We didn't create turnovers. So I would expect them to have some turnovers being created in this game. So I think it's going to be a good game against the Jets. Will they win? I don't know, because this Jets team is still, good defense with Aaron Rodgers. Like it's Garrett Wilson, it's a good mix for them. But I think it's going to be a good game.
You want to know one mistake that I do not expect to see again on Sunday? And if I see it again, somebody is headed for the door. Jack Gibbons. That was awful.
So do you just take him out and put a new guy there?
I don't know. I mean, what I say is, and again, I don't know, like, would you put Luke Gifford in that spot? Because Luke Gifford's not very big. Would you put, Otis Reese in that spot? Otis Reese, kind of had something similar happen to him last year against New Orleans. If Gibbons is back in the same spot and the same thing happens again, then it might be time to.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask Cole Anderson about that. Like, okay, at what point do you, pull the trigger on a guy that's underperforming? It's going to be some next Thursday. We're going to have to.
You know what's crazy? And I'm not sitting here advocating that they cut Gibbons because of what happened, but like, I do think that when it comes to Jack Gibbons, there's probably nothing he can do to win the game for the Titans. There's nothing that he's good enough to win a game, but that single-handedly, like that did lose the game.
Yeah,
and it's like, if I sat there and said, hey, this undrafted free agent that's on your team that, he's kind of a fringe starter, probably more of a backup, he's going to do something that costs you a game, they'd cut him right then and there. Because it's like, yeah, we can't have that. One texter says, TD, how many games do you think you should give a quarterback before you make a final decision on whether or not he's the guy? I can't remember what I heard this, but I remember hearing giving a new quarterback 20 games before making a decision. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I think 20 games is a good one. But I think it's a case-by-case thing too, though, right? Because some guys will show you early that, hey, look, I don't think I don't think so. But other guys will show you over time. So I think it just depends on what the errors are and how consistently those errors are happening. Like if it's the same thing over and over and over again, then yeah, it might be time to pull the plug a little early.
I also would say, I think with quarterback, to me, quarterbacks like coach. Sometimes you just know. Like there
Sometimes
are times
you do. Yeah.
where you're like, I remember the Denver game for Mariota, and I was a big Mariota guy. And I remember the Denver game, and I'm like, you got to take him out.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're letting everybody else down.
Yep.
You got to take him out. And that is, again, I think with Levis, like there's going to come a point in time where we know. Like, I feel like I know, again, to me, when you draft a young quarterback, whether it's the first round, second round, obviously the expectations are higher in the first round, but it's still a young quarterback. And when I believe drafting a young quarterback and turning things over to a young quarterback with talent, the hope is that he becomes a star.
Yes.
You know, the way Lamar Jackson became a star, the way that Mahomes became a star, the way that Allen's become a star. And I do kind of feel like Levis probably is never going to be a star. And
It's
that
just so
depresses
early.
me.
It's so early to say that he's never going to be a star. I mean, he's shown. Look at the first game he had, right?
Right.
Look at that. Look at this. You
But
want to talk
Marcus
about the
had
Steelers game?
that
You want to
first
talk
game.
about the Steelers game? Look at the throw he made. Renegades playing on the loudspeakers. The towels are waving.
Is that the one that DeAndre out of the end zone?
It was no. This was the first down. It was first and like 15, and it was like a 17-yard gain to Traylon Burks. Came right. Their huddle was in the end zone. All at Acrisure Stadium raining down on them. Breaks the huddle, throws a dart to the left sideline from just inside the just inside the numbers on the right to Traylon Burks. Catch, first down. The towels were put back in their pockets and the music went off. That's a sign, right? You know, there are plenty of signs. I mean, we don't need to talk about the Miami game, the comeback, right? And the Magic Johnson pass to DeAndre Hopkins, right? So there's signs. Like, he definitely has absolute star power.
Oh, he's got physical talent.
And I think you know the thing is, it's a gift and a curse there because he has so much of that star power. You get so thirsty for it. When you don't get that sip of it, you get like, oh man, it's never going to come. I think give it time, and it's possible. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh look, that's the quarterback of the future again. But I am just not going to say that's not awesome.
So where you are right now is where I was before Sunday, and now where I am is I'm like,
you let one game tell you that?
One game of incompetence is what bothers me.
Is it one game or one play?
No, it was.
You talking about diving for like?
Yeah, and if he's never gonna learn, like, it's like Mason Rudolph's gonna play because he's gonna get hurt if he keeps taking those kind of pops.
That word incompetence is just so dangerous. Like, I can't say that was a game of incompetence. I can't because he made some good plays. You know what I mean? He stepped up in the pocket, threw the strike to Calvin Ridley.
The one on the 3rd and 15?
Yeah, like, he's made some good. I can't call him incompetent. I think the big problem is just, again, understanding when the journey's over. You know, you look at the situation that he's been in for all these years, right? Like, the second to last year in Kentucky, junior year or whatever, he had a solid team around him. He showed off. But then after that, like, look at what he's. So it kind of gets ingrained in you to try to be the hero all the time. And again, habits form over time. So now what Brian Callahan and the crew have to do, and I know we're up against it, they have to kind of deprogram those bad habits and reprogram new ones. You know, and that's something that's going to happen in the summer.
That Kentucky team in 2021 beat one SEC team with a winning record, 7-6 South Carolina. That concerns me a little bit. That it's not like he was going against Georgia, but I did watch Georgia tape his last year, and I thought he actually, even though they didn't have a good game, I thought he gave them a chance.
The throw against Florida was stupid, you know, throwing that post. Like, he gives you signs.
Like the Anthony Richardson throw the other day. That was a sign.
I sent it. Remember, I texted to you. You had already seen it, but I sent it to you.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
TD, as always, good to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Good to be seen, man. Check us out Fridays, 6 to 7, the Jake and TD show.
There you go. TD, we'll talk to you on Sunday ahead of the game against the Jets.
Yes, sir. The award-winning show.
The award-winning pregame show. Coming up next, Brian Callahan talked about the identity of the offense and why I wonder if a change might be coming down the road. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So I will give Brian Callahan some credit because he does kind of keep it real when it comes to talking about what's up with the Titans, what's up with the team. You know, again, sometimes I think it's a little sunshiny. Sometimes I think it's a little, not in touch with reality. But for the most part, I think he does keep it real. And he was asked about the identity of the team. And Brian Callahan, I think, had a very thoughtful answer when talking about how do you determine what the identity of your football team is going to be?
You are constantly in the first part of the season evaluating what it is that you do well. And then once you kind of find what that identity is of your team, you lean into it. And that is an ongoing process over the whole year. But usually in this first couple of weeks, you find out a lot of things. And I think that you rely on people's thoughts and ideas and viewpoints on their positions, on their units, offense, defense, and special teams. And you just have to be willing to be flexible and adaptable and not afraid to say what we thought we were going to be isn't true and we need to do something different. And that was what we did in Cincinnati, especially when we first got there. We were a under center wide zone team. The arrival of Joe Burrow changed that. We tried to do a little bit of both. Turns out for whatever, and again, every year it changes. Your talent acquisition changes, and we ended up becoming a shotgun team and a gap scheme team. And as the year went along, and so anyway, long story short, there's an evolution that takes place in the first part of the season, and you have to be willing to know when to pivot and to adapt.
He's telling you your identity isn't what you want it to be. It is what it becomes. And it kind of reminds me of in 2018 when Matt LaFleur was supposed to unleash Marcus Mariota. Remember, Mike Mularkey and Terry Robisky were fired because we didn't want to see any more 1970 football. And so in comes the guy from the Rams in order to take the quarterback and take the Maserati out of the garage until 3/4 of the way through the season. And they were like, you know what? We're better off with Derrick Henry. Remember when Deion Lewis was the starting running back? Yeah, I do too. So I do wonder when it comes to your identity becoming what you make of it, I do wonder how long it will take before Brian Callahan pulls the plug on trying to have a 50-50 offense with these receivers and the young quarterback and really goes with Tony Pollard carrying the football. I actually kind of find it funny because I remember a couple of weeks ago being at First Horizon Park where we were supposed to be today, being at First Horizon Park after training camp practice, seeing the offensive line, seeing the state of the offense and saying, I think this team needs to be a run-first team with Tony Pollard running the ball. And people were pissed. Jared, we don't want to go back to old school football. We want to be Cincinnati. I remember. Because everybody assumed that that's what they were going to be on paper. Cincinnati coach, Cincinnati throws it all the time, Cincinnati 3 wide receivers, quarterback with a rocket arm, 2 running backs, high picks on the left side of the line, blah, blah, blah. You wanted to throw it 40 times a game. You might not have said it, but that's what you wanted to do. And here we are 1 week into the season, and you can't trust the quarterback to follow simple, basic directions. At least I don't think you can. He can't hit wide receivers down the field, and the second running back gave you nothing on Sunday. Oh, and by the way, you can't pass block. So what options does that give you when it comes to how you're building your team? And the answer is it gives you the option to run the ball with Tony Pollard, and then once you establish yourself running the football, then you can execute play action pass off of giving the ball to Tony Pollard. Ian, you know what that sounds like?
What's that?
Remember when I used to say what the best offense the Titans had was and the second best offense the Titans had was?
Mm-hmm.
Running the ball with Derrick Henry and
Giving the ball to Derrick Henry.
Faking it to Derrick Henry. It sounds like what the Titans offense looked like when Marcus Mariota was handing it to DeMarco Murray and running play action off of handing it to DeMarco Murray. It kind of sounds like the Titans offense when they handed the ball to Derrick Henry, and then they threw the ball to A.J. Brown off of play action to Derrick Henry. Again, you guys thought you were getting Cincinnati's coach, and so you were going to be the Bengals. And in all fairness, you do have an offensive line to be the Bengals. That is the one thing that is similar to the Bengals. You don't have Jamar Chase. You don't have T. Higgins. You do have Tyler Boyd. You don't have those guys, but you do have the Cincinnati offensive line. But as much as you don't want to be what you've been in the past, I'm not sure there's really an alternative. What, are you going to line up and sit in the shotgun and throw it 50 times? With those tackles, with that pass protection, you can't do that. How many times is the quarterback going to miss the deep ball before you say, well, we can't throw that? 3rd and 6, up by a point in the fourth quarter on Sunday. Brian Callahan called a pass. You think he'd do it again? Or do you think he'd run it out of the shotgun and bring out the punter? So when he says the identity is what you make it, not what you want it to be, and it evolves throughout the course of the year, I'm telling you where it's going to evolve to. Tony Pollard is the next Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray. Hand the ball to Pollard, fake it to Pollard, bring the other guy in occasionally, and on 3rd down. Just like they used to bring in Jeremy McNichols, just like they used to bring in Dontrell Hilliard. That's what they're going to do with the other guy. That's what it will become. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan noticed something I noticed on Sunday, and it ain't good. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Let's talk FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. And this year, FanDuel is giving you a chance to win big every Thursday night with FanDuel Squares. It's the same as Super Bowl Squares, the game you've always known, only it's way better. That's because your numbers aren't just randomly assigned. You get to pick them yourself, and you can pick as many as you like. You'll get to see the odds beforehand, and you can bet them live during tonight's game. So what are you waiting for? Go to FanDuel.com/JGM and bet on FanDuel Squares. Plus, if you're new to FanDuel, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com/JGM. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
You can build on offensive line wise, and what do you need to kind of shore up on the offensive line going forward?
Certainly can build on the way we ran the ball early in the game. That was really a nice showing by those guys up front. You saw the power that Pete and JC have on a handful of combinations, and we did a pretty good job in the run game early. The one we got to get better at is the pass pro. We gave up too much pressure, too much leakage, and things that are correctable that we need to correct. There's some technique things and some awareness things that need to get better, but certainly our pass protection stands to improve. And not that the run game doesn't at all needs to improve, but I just think that the positives were for us up front were in the run game, and the negatives were in our pass protection.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about the offensive line, saying, we did a good job run blocking, not so good pass blocking. We need work pass blocking. I'd say that's a problem. Hey, we can run block. And I was watching the game on Sunday, and I said this to my dad, because I think Scoronski and Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, I think they struggle from the same problem, which is you'll see them maul somebody in the running game. And you'll say, see, Jared, look at Peter Scoronski lay out that linebacker. And then in pass protection, they'll get turnstiled by some run-of-the-mill defensive end, defensive tackle. And it's like, well, damn, shouldn't have just let that guy go right by him. But where you make your money in the NFL, for the most part, is in pass protection. Why? Because I can go find anybody to run block. Aaron Brewer can run block. Not great, but he can do it. The problem is with Aaron Brewer is when he's got some big fat boy on him that just throws him to the side. That's pass protection. So it's a problem right now that the Titans can't pass block, but they can run block. The good teams can do both, like the teams that have Trent Williams. Because you can't win 17 games playing the exact same way every single game unless you have Patrick Mahomes. And I know that they don't have Patrick Mahomes. And by the way, when Mahomes was starting out, and Levis is still starting out, I mean, Mahomes' first year was his second year. So Mahomes' first year, they had the number 1 overall pick in a draft at left tackle and a high second round pick at right tackle. You see what I'm saying when it matters whether or not you have a right or left tackle? Now, Latham, I think, will be okay. He just needs more reps. But Scoronski and PT, that could be a problem. And that's, again, why I go back to, I think they're probably going to have to run the football. I think they're going to just have to be a running team. They're going to have to be what they were Mariota's second year with DeMarco Murray, and they're going to have to run the crap out of the ball with Tony Pollard. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Dustin says, I think we're jumping the UFC cliff a little early. What is the UFC cliff? I don't watch that stuff, so I wouldn't.
I don't watch UFC either. I'm not familiar with that term.
So whatever. Jumping the cliff early. I know what that means. Whole new coaching staff, different playbook, one real game under their belt. Maybe it's good Levis lost that way. It's a good thing you lost that game. Oh, God.
Got to learn somehow.
Maybe.
I always learn my lessons the hard way.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good thing Levis lost that way. Maybe it will make him. Oh, God. I should just stop reading this.
You sound a little distraught.
Maybe it will make him tighten up his game quickly.
Tighten up, baby.
This whole new team had one real game together. Were there some bad? There was a lot to look forward to. Great looking running game for one half. Great looking running game. Great defense. Levis had a decent first half. Levis had a don't make a mistake in the first half, which was fine. Levis did not have a good first half. O-line fell apart in the second half and tried to play hero ball too. But the quarterback needs a line that allows him to play to his full potential 90% of the game, not on his back. The pick was boneheaded. I'll say that awful, but way too soon back away from the cliff. I'm just telling you. I think that I've learned that Will Levis is not able to comprehend enough, quick enough to be able to naturally do the things that great quarterbacks do. I think that there is now enough proof that Will Levis is not going to be a great quarterback. The same way I feel about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I didn't watch the Miami-Jacksonville game, but TD and I were talking during the last break, and Trevor Lawrence completed 12 passes for like 127 yards, and they lost by 3. I'm sorry, but when you're making $55 million a year, you better win if you're going to throw 12 passes.
Tua beat him.
Like, it's time to start throwing for more. You did $55 million bucks, and you throw for 127 yards or whatever it is. Unacceptable for Trevor Lawrence. And that's the point. That at some point, you stop being young, potential, you got a chance. That ends at some point. Austin says, I'm curious what your confidence level is in Brian Callahan as the coach for this franchise for the future. He seems to me to have a good understanding of personnel. At this moment, what would you rate your confidence in him at? Okay, well, first of all, I don't know if Brian Callahan does have a good sense of personnel because he supposedly doesn't do personnel. Coaches don't do personnel. Personnel people do personnel. General manager, assistant general manager, that kind of thing. Right now, I'd put it at 5 with Brian Callahan. I haven't seen any egregious red flags that make me think, oh my God, this has no chance. I have not seen one hint of that. But I also haven't really seen Brian Callahan be put in a situation where he has to make a decision in which the outcome hinges on that decision. Right now, he's in the honeymoon, and right now it's easy. It's easy. Because Levis makes the mistake by throwing the death pick, and, well, we just blame Levis. But if Levis does that in another game, and all of a sudden you're midway through, and now it's like, do you put Mason Rudolph in there? That's where you have to figure out, how are you going to do it? How are you going to sell it to the team? How are you going to sell it to the fan base, to the owner? That is when you make real coaching decisions. When everybody here wants him to throw it 40 times a game, and you give Will Levis an install that's pretty much running the football because you don't trust him, and you have to sit down and have that conversation and say, son, I can't trust you to throw the ball. So this is what I'm going to do. That's when you're coaching. And he hasn't had to do any of that. So I put it at a 5, right there in the middle. I have no opinion on Brian Callahan, good, bad, or indifferent. I think he's a good man, and I root for good people, so I hope things work out for him. Plus, I mean, I don't know. I like Brian. I personally like Brian Callahan.
He seems like a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. I ran into him over the summer. He's a good guy.
Down to earth, kind of. Yeah, seems like a nice guy. Relatable.
He's a real good guy.
Yeah.
So I hope the best for good people. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Umberto from New Jersey says, okay, I don't think this is real. So I'm going to let that one go. One texter says, Mariota was a Honda, not a Maserati. J-Rob just couldn't see it. I mean, I'm not sure J-Rob ever really loved Mariota, but I think Amy thought Mariota was a Maserati. Mariota's a minivan. I mean, it can get you where you're going sometimes. 615-737-1025. We got a lot of your phones. 615-737-1025. And there was one thing that's really been bothering me. And I feel like I'm the only person in the world who's bothered by this. But I am very bothered by this. And I think as a fan, you should be too. In fact, I think fans just let it go in one ear, out the other. But it does bother me. Tune into 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville this Saturday for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders will take on Western Kentucky at Floyd Stadium. Pre-game at 4:30, kickoff at 6. Coverage also available on the 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. And on Sunday, be sure to join me, Chris Sanders, and D. Mace at John Bon Jovi's from 9:30 to 11:30 for the award-winning pregame show. We'll break down the Titans' Week 2 matchup against the Jets. The pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. So get excited for all of that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Footwork, Will, I know you've worked on that a lot in the offseason. Did you feel good about it in the opener, or did you feel like there's some times where you kind of went backwards a little bit? What were your thoughts?
I felt really good. I think in the beginning, I think maybe that first third down, I got a little bit, wasn't like in the timing, or at least kind of like how my base was feeling at that point. And I can remember one other time where I moved off my base, sliding left in the pocket where I didn't need to. But other than that, I felt clean. I felt good in my base. I felt like I was delivering clean, accurate balls.
Will Levis felt like he was accurate on Sunday. I didn't feel like he was accurate on Sunday. I felt like, could work on it one way or another. So again, the question from John Glennon right there was, How'd you feel about your footwork? Can we just get the question from Glennon again? Levis said he thought his footwork was fine, except for maybe a play here or there.
Footwork, Will, I know you've worked on that a lot in the offseason. Did you feel good about it in the opener, or did you feel like, there's some times where you kind of went backwards a little bit? What were your thoughts?
I felt really good.
He felt really good. Did you feel good about it? I felt really, really good. Okay. Did his coach feel good about the footwork? Here was Brian Callahan.
How similar is that for Will as a young player? I mean, he just made his 10th start, and how much of corrections and that improvement of footwork that was mentioned on Monday can only happen in games for a quarterback?
That's really what it is. And you coach off of those clips, and you hope that when the quarterbacks watch and look back and feel it, he feels the things that we're talking about, which Will does. And so now you have something to work with now that they've feel it again. They understand, and then when you make the coaching points, it makes more sense, and then you hope to see it translate. And you work on it in practice, and you drill it, and just like anything, you're always drilling something that involves your improvement in the game. We very rarely ever go out there at any position and do drill work that is just to do it. It's all very focused on how do we improve some aspect of where we're playing in the game, what we're asking guys to do. So the drill work's really important. We spend a lot of time thinking about it and how to implement it, and so that part is where you hope to see the improvement in practice, and then he's got to go do it in the game.
Okay, so the coach did not love the footwork right there. In fact, the offensive coordinator, Nick Holes, when talking about the death pick that Will Levis threw, talked about how everybody was reverting to bad habits, including Levis with his footwork.
Last play, he knew he was hot. You know what I mean? He knew he was hot. They brought a great blitz from the field. He knew all those things, so he saw it well. So I didn't see panicky, and, it's just a physical error compounded by a little bit of a mental error of not throwing it away. So I do think that was part of it. And then I think you go back to watching some of the game as the game went on in times of stress, all positions on our team went back to a little bit of some old habits. You know what I mean? You kind of saw, and that's across the board, whether it was some of the receivers in their routes, some of the linemen in their pass sets, quarterback drifting into pressure a little bit, kind of, getting his feet off kilter. So I thought it was kind of group wide a little bit at the end. A lot of problems compounded each other, not just Will.
Oh, okay. So, hey, everybody was making mistakes, including him with his footwork. So he says his footwork was good. The coach says he needs to work on it. The OC pointed it out. Somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong. And I'm going to tell you something. I have a gut feeling who it is that I think is wrong. What about somebody who's not associated with the team but probably knows good quarterback play? What about a former league MVP? This was Rich Gannon on SiriusXM NFL Radio talking about what he saw out of Will Levis.
A couple things really jump out to me, Bruce. I said this before the game. Will Levis, footwork and accuracy go hand in hand, and he had a problem with it at Kentucky. Last year, he completed 58% of his passes, which was the worst in the NFL. I think we saw that again yesterday. The feet are bad. His eyes are all over the place, and they've got to get that corrected. I thought Bill Callahan, I'm not talking about Brian because I know Bill's in the ear of Brian.
So that's all we needed as far
really
as the footwork's concerned. So again, I'm no footwork expert. This is like when I watch offensive line play. I don't know where the guy's tush needs to be. I don't know where his shoulder needs to go. I don't know technique. I don't know any of that. But I do know that footwork is very important at the quarterback position. I remember when Levis was coming out and Bill Polian said footwork, footwork, footwork for both he and Anthony Richardson. So I know it's important. And I know Brian Callahan knows what he's talking about. And Brian Callahan says it's not good enough. And I know Rich Gannon knows what he's talking about. And Rich Gannon says it's not good enough. But Levis is going to tell us that it is good enough. And to me, that's concerning. Because it's concerning for one of two reasons. The first reason it would be concerning is because if Levis doesn't know what the problem is, then Levis can't get better. Period. Like if the coach knows the footwork's the problem and the coach is telling him your footwork is the problem and he thinks, but no, coach, my footwork is good, you're never going to get any better. The second reason it's concerning is because if Levis does know his footwork is a problem, because the coach showed it to him on the tape and they went over it, and Rich Gannon saw it, so it obviously is a problem. If it's a problem and he won't admit to it, that means that he's insecure about it, and that's a problem. Like at some point, how as the quarterback, how are you going to hold everybody else accountable when you won't be accountable yourself? So for whatever reason it is, the fact that it's this whole game of, well, I thought my footwork was good. Well, that's great, but everybody else doesn't. And when everybody else thinks something about you and you think the opposite, chances are they're probably right. I used to work with somebody, not here. I used to work with somebody, I don't know if he showered or not, but he smelled terrible. And we used to talk about it all around the office about how bad this guy smelled. And one guy I worked with, another guy I worked with at the same spot, had the suggestion, because we were all talking about, how do we tell this guy that he just smells awful? Everybody smells it. How do we tell this guy that he just stinks? Somebody had the idea of saying, okay, who here smells good? And everybody thinks they smell good, and everybody puts their hand up. And then when he puts his hand up, say, not you. That was it. So it's like, who thought Will had good footwork? It's like Levis just puts his hand up. It's like, nope, don't think so. But am I the only person that seems, I don't think fans care about that. I don't think they will. I think they'll be like, oh, who cares, Jared, what he says? Let's get ready for the Jets game. Well, if he doesn't know that his footwork stinks, how can he get ready for the Jets game? Somebody help me understand that. 615-737-1025 here on the program. 615-737-1025. One texter says he sounded winded answering the question about footwork, which was just like a word vomit. I don't think it was a word vomit. I think it was him saying that he felt like his footwork was good and he felt like he was accurate. And the problem with that was on Sunday, we all watched the game. I don't think he was accurate. Ian doesn't think he was accurate. Rich Gannon doesn't think he was accurate. He's the only person on the planet who thinks he's accurate. I mean, he missed 2 touchdowns. What are we talking about? The one touchdown he did throw, Chig basically jumped up and took the ball away from the defensive back. Even that throw wasn't very accurate. Who here was accurate on Sunday? Hand in the air. Not you. It's not a bad idea, by the way, to tell somebody they stink. Let's get everybody in a room. Have a showering intervention.
I don't know. That's kind of bad.
One texter says, if Levis thinks almost everything was fine on Sunday, he has no insight. So how can we expect or change an improvement? I mean, let me just say that this is why I keep going back to the death pick. Like, when it comes to Will Levis and it comes to the death pick, we've heard about 8 different stories between the coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback. The offensive coordinator said he knew he was hot, and then he just made a mental and physical error. I'd say. The head coach said, I told him before the quarter, don't do anything stupid. And then he went out and did something stupid. I think the coach said on Monday, I was surprised to see that out of Levis. And then Levis said that, they zero blitzed and they hadn't zero blitzed all game, which made it sound like he didn't see everything that was out there. Whereas everybody who doesn't have skin in the game has commented consistently about how the thought process with Levis was so horrific that it doesn't make any sense for him to do what he did. Terry Bradshaw, Bill Belichick, anybody. It's unbelievable. So how do you expect for improvement if Levis thinks everything was good? That's the problem, is it was not. Again, Levis got up there yesterday, along with mentioning DeMario on the Jets. Levis got up there, and Levis was like, I know I have what it takes to play in this league. I'm glad you do, because I don't. I don't know you have what it takes. Texter says, the Levis interception has the potential to be more detrimental to Levis's career than the Cincinnati picks were to Ryan Tannehill. That comes from Joseph. I don't think so, because we don't even know if Will Levis is good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill had a Super Bowl contending team, threw 3 interceptions, lost a game, and A.J. Brown got traded. And I'm not here to say, well, if this hadn't happened, and then this would have this, and then that would have. But I kind of feel like if the Titans had gone to the Super Bowl or had won the Super Bowl, they're not trading A.J. Brown. And the worst thing that ever happened to Ryan Tannehill was when they traded A.J. Brown. So I'm not going to agree with that. But the Levis death pick, I mean, that's something we're going to talk about for like 10 years.
I hope not.
Like, I hope you guys realize that. Like, if Levis ends up becoming the guy, we'll talk about how far he's come since the death pick against Chicago. If Levis isn't the guy, we'll talk about how, well, that wasn't as bad as Will Levis's death pick. We still talk about how bad Zach Mettenberger was. I heard Robbie today talking about the Zach Mettenberger game against the Texans when Mettenberger took the selfie in the locker room before the game, and then J.J. Watt sacked him, and J.J. got up over him, and J.J. pretended like he had a camera
Was that
taking
the
a selfie.
Letterman jacket one too? Is that same time?
Well, when after the game, when Mettenberger's comeback was that he wore Letterman's jacket. That's not cool.
Something like that. I remember a Letterman's jacket in there
okay.
somewhere.
Mettenberger. One person on the planet thought he was any good, and it was his coach, who's now his father-in-law. Which, again, not to get personal, but that is actually true. They were both on Nick Saban's coaching staff last year. Cameron says the Chig touchdown was a total YOLO ball. I don't think it was a YOLO ball, but I don't think it was a well-placed ball. I think it was a great play by Chig. And that came one tweet or 1 second after I tweeted, get Chig and Burks off the field. Because remember, if you remember before the touchdown pass, Chig got called for a false start. And I was like, all right, get Chig off the field, get Burks off the field. Enough.
Would have liked to have seen more from Burks since Hopkins didn't really play much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at this point, we just have to all understand that Burks is what he is. It ain't pretty, and it ain't beautiful. Texture says, Levis saying his footwork was fine when it wasn't comes off to me as my poop doesn't stink. With that attitude, he will never fix any of his problems because to him, he doesn't have any. Another texture says, Levis is the type of guy who makes a mistake, then breaks something, and you think, wow, this guy cares. And then he keeps making mistakes and breaking things, and you think, wow, this guy has a problem. I do know that. I mean, I think with Levis, everybody talks about how dedicated Levis is, how hard Levis works, and how much Levis, everyone's behind him because he's so invested and and none of that matters if your brain does not function properly in the heat of the moment. It's like you can love driving a car, but if every time you get on the interstate you crash, well, we got to change things. One texter said, speaking of Tannehill, Levis clearly learned nothing from Ryan Tannehill, not even how to do a press conference. I really do wonder what the relationship between those two was. They've both spoken very complimentary of one another, but it's never like you knew there wasn't a bromance there between those two guys. Like there was kind of a bromance between Brady and Bledsoe. Like a older brother, younger brother kind of thing. I think Bledsoe said that he kind of just felt like Tom Brady was an annoying little brother who would never go away. And they would show like mic'd up clips where they were on the sideline and Bledsoe was warming up and Brady wanted to get a couple of throws. And Bledsoe goes, you just want to get a couple of throws because you want to get on TV. And they laughed at each other and that, like, older brother, lower brother, or older brother, younger brother. I'm not sure I got that vibe from Levis and Tannehill. My favorite is in the Brady documentary. Drew Bledsoe was talking about when they drafted Brady. He's like, I always liked Tommy. He was kind of annoying. He was kind of a geek, but, he was always around. He said, after a year, I thought Tommy was going to make it in the NFL and be around for a while as a backup. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. Coming up next, I feel very strongly about tonight's Thursday night football game. So we will do that next. First, though, let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Co Wetzel at Ascend Amphitheater on Friday, September 27th. I was so focused on the Titans this week that I really didn't know until yesterday who Thursday Night Football was.
It's a good one.
It is a good one tonight. Thursday Night Football, Prime Video, Bills and Dolphins in Miami. And I feel very strongly about this. I don't feel strongly enough to guarantee it, but I do feel very strongly about Buffalo plus 2.5. And here's why I feel very strongly. Traditionally, I believe in going with the home team on Thursday Night Football. Remember, the home team doesn't have to travel. So when it comes to Thursday Night Football, Monday and Tuesday, you're still recovering from the game. Wednesday is your only the real day of practice you get. And the team that's traveling really only gets to go through a walkthrough, and then they get on the plane and they have to travel. The home team can truly focus on Wednesday for the game on Thursday. So I almost always say take the home team on Thursday Night Football. But here's why I'm going tonight with Buffalo. I think Miami's been too distracted this week with all the Tyreek Hill stuff. And I'm not here to tell you what's right, wrong, or indifferent or anything like that. I'm just here to tell you that Tyreek Hill was on CNN on Monday. Tyreek Hill's got lawyers releasing statements. Everybody on the team's been asked about it. Hell, Jonnu Smith and Calais Campbell got written up or arrested over all of this. This has been a massive gong show. And let me say this, the culpability lies mostly, in my opinion, with the Miami police officer, not with Tyreek. I'm on Tyreek's side, which I never thought I would say, but is true. But again, between that and the fact that it's going to be bad weather, which I think is worth noting because who would you rather be, Tua with his little baby hands in bad weather or big Josh Allen? And I think Josh Allen's a better player. And I think Josh Allen with Keon Coleman and that, I think Josh Allen is on his way to an MVP season. He was my preseason pick for league MVP. So I got to say, again, I'm not going to guarantee it, though I would like to guarantee it. I'm not going to guarantee it because I don't feel that strongly about it, but I do feel very strongly Buffalo plus 2.5. Stillman and Company, I promise we will get to the Jets at length tomorrow, and we will do it at 2 o'clock, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.